in my mouth?
Wouldn't be any worse.
And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Thursday, August 3rd. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. Easy slate tonight. Not a lot of games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 game slate. I probably should have known that before I started the show, but whatever. It's fine. You guys get it. 6 games to talk about. Lots to dig into for today. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. The notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Adam, what are your thoughts on newly minted starter for the Baltimore Orioles, Jack Flaherty?
He's looked good today. A little bit of a jam right now, but he's looked great. Fastball velocity's up. He threw his fastest pitch in the last year in the first inning. He threw 4 fastballs and 1 at bat to Matt Chapman that were faster than like any pitch he'd thrown with the Cardinals this year. So yeah, he's looked really good so far. I've been happy.
Come on, Vlad Guerrero, do the ding dong dance here.
He still
96 mile an hour fastball down the heart of the
game.
plate. Oh,
What'd you say?
I said 96 mile an hour fastball down the heart of the plate. Do something, Vladdy.
Yeah.
Okay, just taking a look here at chat. You know, a name that I don't see today. Jake Swales. Where are you, sir? Where are you? What happened yesterday? Did the Cubs play well? I don't know. Did they? Is it possible? Sean V was here in the morning to take his medicine and immediately patted himself on the back. Like, I was wrong, but I was right about Dane Dunning. Like, oh my God, man.
Did you know that he was getting a 96 mile an hour fastball down the middle? Like, are you that far ahead of me?
Yeah, I mean, it was on the screen and I read.
Oh, okay. I thought you were just saying you wanted a 96 mile an hour fastball down the middle and for him to like hit it far.
No, I mean, I did, and that's also what he got. He just didn't do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, like 30 seconds after you said it, I saw the pitch and I was like, is he that far ahead?
Yeah. Ugh, come on, Vlad. Killing me here. A 3-run dinger here would probably actually give me $25. I could use at this point in time. It is insane to me that the Cubs were able to put up all those runs 2 days in a row. That might be the first time ever in baseball that a team was good on back-to-back nights. Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, and I talked about it with Lofty this morning. Doesn't that mean they're on a hot streak now?
It does. So now you got to play them
right. They did well 2 nights in a row, so they have to do well 3.
Yeah. It's I hope everybody's learning where the holes in the logic were here for all of this. They were not from us. Yeah, it's like Sean V this morning was like, oh, you guys were right. I was like, you were wrong yesterday. You just didn't know it. Like, right. It didn't matter what the Cubs did. You were wrong anyway. Oh, David Porter, I am not sweating a min cash. I'm sweating absolutely nothing.
You might be sweating 1 min cash.
Yeah. My current winnings, yes, I am currently placing 0 of 150 in the money right now. So, I need a lot more than 1. Oh, man. No sign of him. The Jake Swales knew he couldn't show up today. Dude's going to take like a week off. So, like, he thinks people forget. I'm going to roast this dude the moment he shows up. I can't wait. Sean V's hiding somewhere, probably in the corner of his master bedroom, but just a guess. You want to talk some baseball?
Yeah, I really want Vlad to strike out, but yeah.
I don't. It's crazy how that works. In-play runs!
Can you not just ruin this for me?
Depends on what the runs are. Oh, we're not going to the first game until I find out what he did. Because if this is tater salad, that's different than
like he just like hit a pop up down the right field line for a hit.
Okay. Hey, hits are hits. Let's go, Vladdy. I'd say I'm okay with the Orioles winning, but like the Blue Jays still getting it. But seeing as I have precisely 0% of the Orioles, I don't want them to keep pace. And by the way,
so typical baseball, Vlad makes an out in the first inning at 103 miles an hour, and then he gets an RBI hit at like 40 miles an hour.
I don't know if it's just because my phone hears me have conversations with you so frequently and we talk Orioles and stuff. The amount of ads I'm getting on Instagram for new era Orioles hats is starting to become like really weird. Lots of them, very different versions, like very stylized hats. Some of them are really awesome, but it's only Orioles.
Yeah, I mean,
It
it's
can only be you.
probably because of me.
Yeah. Technology is scary. Just show me Braves hats. Let's see if that worked. I found this today. Didn't know I had it. Had a World Series shirt. Didn't even know it was in my presence. Opened up my closet today and I was like, what shirt is that? Where did I get that? When did I get that? So repping today. Josh, you have to stop searching for Orioles porn. I don't know what that would be.
I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward.
Well, I don't know if it involved like actual birds.
I mean, it could be actual birds or it could be players on the Orioles, either one.
Yeah. Something like that. Rio count. I like it. Let's get into today's slate. I think I've killed as much time as I possibly could on this little 6-gamer. Gonna need something to happen, either positively or negatively, to ruin Adam watching this game right now. One way or the other, I need to bring him back to this, whether that's Orioles success or Blue Jays.
Bring me back
success.
to it. You're talking about the ads you get on your. I've been ready for the last 5 minutes.
Until you're not. Brewers and Pirates. 4.6 run implied total for the Brewers, 4.1 for the Pirates. Adrian Hauser and Mitch Keller going in this one. Slightly different price tiers. Adrian Hauser, 15% owned at 5,200. Mitch Keller, 15% owned at 9,100. Let's start with the Keller side, since he is technically the better pitcher. How do you feel about him at 9,100 today?
I think he's interesting in tournaments. I understand why he's not getting quite as much ownership as the other payout pitchers. But it is a good enough spot, good enough matchup against the Brewers. There are some strikeouts in that lineup. It's not a great offense overall. It is a Park downgrade. He has been pitching a little bit worse recently, but 16.5% ownership. I was getting above that in the Sims video earlier. I had no issue with that. So I think he's somewhat interesting. And then Hauser, there's not a lot that you're going to like from a DFS standpoint, but this slate is just really tough with pitching. You have Ohtani at the top as, clearly the most talented pitcher on the slate. You have Urias and clearly the best matchup on the slate. And then everybody else, and those guys still have, some question marks, but everybody else is just kind of there. And so Hauser coming in at 5,200 becomes somewhat interesting just because he is so cheap. He has an okay matchup with the Pirates, and it's just, the cheapest pitching play you can make.
It is a really weird game to see. Like, it's always weird to me just in general when you see two pitchers have the same ownership, but they're very different in their like day-to-day stature. Like the difference between Hauser and Keller just overall. It's what salaries do to DFS, but it's always interesting to look at it and just be like, wow, I think I'm going to have more of the shittier guy here. Never enjoy it. It's always just been like a piece of DFS that I've never really liked. Let's talk bats then. I guess we're going to the Pirates. They're slightly more owned. They're certainly a better value. Brewer side is 6th in top stack, 7th in ownership. Pirates are 7th in top stack, 5th in ownership. But from a pricing perspective, much easier to get to the Pirates. Which team do you think you'll have more of?
Probably Pittsburgh. I like the positive park shift for them. I like the fact that Hauser doesn't miss a lot of bats. Jack Sawinski is one of my favorite value plays on the slate at 3,600. He's got an expected ISO above 300 against right-handed pitching this year. And Hauser doesn't give up a ton of power, but he's going to let this guy put the ball in play, and he hits the ball hard whenever he does. So really like Sawinski. I don't think we have a leadoff hitter from the Pirates in the player pool. Alfonso Rivas is leading off. They just got him from, I don't even remember where, maybe the Cubs, but I'm not positive. Either way, doesn't appear to be in the player pool. So that makes the Pirates stack a little bit weaker, but Reynolds, McCutchen, Sawinski, Davis, Hayes, 2 through 6 is still pretty nice. You have Rodriguez as a cheap catcher hitting 7th. So I like the value component that the Pirates offer. And then on the other side, Keller has been hittable recently. You do have a good catcher and shortstop in Contreras and Adames, which always makes the stack more appealing, but I think it's likely I get to the Pirates more.
Okay. Ooh, I typed the wrong number there. Who stands out to you on the Brewers side then? Because we're not really seeing much ownership here. 6% in the aggregate. Only Christian Yelich and William Contreras are in double digits. Are there any other bats that stand out? Is that a Sal Frelick type situation today, 3,900?
I mean, I would say Adames is the third one. Keller hasn't given up a lot of power to either side of the plate. 130 expected ISO to righties, 286 expected WOBA. Lefties are at 159 and 319 respectively. Higher K percentage to lefties. You just don't have a lot of power in this lineup for guys to really stand out outside of Yelich, Contreras, and Adames.
Okay. It's a tricky game. Are you? No, I mean, I guess I'm not even surprised. Like, I feel like all of the ownership is correct for both sides of this one. Like, there should be a little bit of the Brewers, but you don't want to go too crazy against Keller. You should be getting a little bit of the Pirates because they're cheap, but they're also not very good in like the grand scheme. I don't.
Yeah.
I think like it's a tricky rank the game for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for me. It's probably. I think Brewers were last.
Okay.
Pirates. Keller, Hauser, Brewers.
They got out of it.
Yeah, I saw the strikeout. The Kirk at bat's still going, but
you'll be happy. I'm not because I have a bunch of Kirk.
Michael Armstrong, I guess, doesn't like that I give quote neutral takes and thinks that you make money in DFS by taking stands. I mean, you can look at my player exposures. Like on a slate like this, I'm likely to have some stands against the field because it is a smaller slate. If you look at my player exposures on normal slates, I'm pretty much around the field, like on most stuff. It matters what your individual lineups look like. So again, yes. I'm better at this than you. So
stands are just a variance discussion, generally speaking. Like,
right. It has to do with it has to do with raw ownership, also slate size. Like on the early slate, you had 4 games. I was under the field on Gossman by a lot. I was over the field on the Orioles because that was an easy way to win. You get to bigger slates and every team is pretty unlikely to win. So if somebody's telling you that you should just be jamming in like one stack, they don't know what they're talking about and they're just trying to entertain you.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to add for Brewers, Pirates, Hauser, Keller. Do you?
Nope.
All right. Well, that's easy enough. First game down, or where we need to be timing-wise, and that's all I could really ask for. Schedule for the rest of the day. Pay attention, folks, and hit the like button, by the way. 52 likes, not nearly enough. MLB Live Before Lock is coming up next. They're going to take you from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, but that is not where this ends, guys. Spoiler alert, we've got another show coming up after MLB Live Before Lock, and it is not a PGA show like it's been in the past. 7:15, Laffy, Matt Gajewski, NFL Live Before Lock, preseason. The NFL is back. You guys are probably significantly more excited about that than I am, but I'm excited for you guys because the NFL is back, and I know a lot of people want to take in that kind of content. You could use the promo code HOF2023, so Hall of Fame 2023. Get our NFL preseason package. First week, $1. Projections, depth charts for the preseason, and a premium Discord with Matt Gajewski. This is what you're getting if you're looking to mess around and do a little preseason NFL. Enjoy it, folks. I hope you do. And if sports betting is more your thing, you can always click the link in the description. Sign up at BetMGM if you're in a legal betting state. Get a month of Stochastic Plus Platinum and up to $1,000 back in bet credits on your first bet. If it wins, you don't have to worry about anything. But if it loses, you're getting coverage with that coming back in bet credits. So whether you're looking for DFS content for the first NFL game or sports betting content for the first NFL game, check out the links in this description. We have what you're looking for. Alrighty. Next game, Yankees and Astros. Somehow I'm in the middle of my document. 4.4 run implied total for the Yanks, 4.3 for the Stros. Clark Schmidt and Christian Javier. Schmidt, 17% owned. Javier, 13% owned. Basically just like the Brewers and Pirates, like all 4 of these arms are essentially 15% owned. Do you prefer Schmidt or Javier today? No, you're not a Javier guy.
I'm not, but I do prefer Javier. I like the matchup against the Yankees specifically. There's only 3 left-handed bats in this lineup. One of them is Ben Rorvet, batting 9th. Anthony Rizzo on the injured list with a concussion that apparently he's been dealing with for 2 months, and the Yankees were just denying it and finally, I guess, needed to deal with it. So that's pretty interesting. But the reason I like Javier here, or can tolerate Javier here, is the strikeout potential. he has drastic splits this year where he's giving up power to both sides of the plate. 237 expected ISO to righties, 206 to lefties. He's only struck lefties out about 17% of the time. He struck righties out 31% of the time. So you're getting 6 right-handed hitters here. Obviously, they can still do damage in this park, but $8,600 price tag, platoon advantage against most of the lineup, which has made a big difference as far as upside for Javier goes. And then also the point that I was making earlier, I have major issues with almost every pitcher on this slate. So 13% ownership for a guy that's striking righties out at a 30+% clip is pretty appealing to me. Schmidt on the other side is less expensive, also has a more difficult matchup, both in terms of strikeouts and just a better offense going up against Houston. He is also much better against righties, and you are getting 7 right-handed bats for the Astros. So you have that working in his favor. 25.7% K percentage, 162 expected ISO, 284 expected WOBA. I think you can still make a good case for Schmidt just because he is $1,400 less and does get the platoon advantage. But you just, top to bottom, the Astros lineup is better than the Yankees lineup. And then also, like, Aaron Judge obviously is great and has, last I checked, in the top batters pool, the highest chance of hitting a home run on this slate. But it really scares me that you have Kyle Tucker and Alvarez in the middle of the Astros order as 2 extremely good left-handed bats against Schmidt. Obviously it is only 2 lefties, but you don't have, like, for Javier, you don't have an elite left-handed hitter in this lineup where it's like, shit, he's not going to strike him out and he's going to give up power to him like you do here with Tucker and Alvarez. But I
on
think
the surface, it's Ohtani for me, by the way.
What'd you say?
On the surface, it's Ohtani for me over Judge for a home run today.
Oh, well, he's not on the slate, so.
As a hitter. But I just mean I gotcha.
Yeah, I was talking about DFS plays.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. Like, I wonder who it is, and then lefty righty in Anaheim, like probably a slightly better spot for Ohtani.
Yeah, no, I said it on the show this morning that if Ohtani were eligible as a hitter, he'd be the best hitting play today.
Okay, yeah, we're on the same page then. Well, let's talk bats here. Yankees are 8th in top stack, 6th in ownership.
I thought you were telling me you had Ohtani over Schmidt and Javier, and I was going to thank you for that contribution because so do I.
Yeah, you know what happens when I take good pitchers.
Yeah.
They pitch like Kevin Gausman. And then you know what happens when I take stacks? They hit like the Giants today.
They also hit like Kevin Gausman.
Yeah, I'd be better off with Kevin Gausman being at the dish. Which stack do you think you're more likely to get to? I think it's probably the Astros, but I don't know.
Probably Houston. It kind of depends, I think, on what ends up happening with pitching, because the more Shohei Ohtani I'm getting to, the more it's likely to be the Yankees because they do offer a ton of value. The more that I'm rolling the dice on these cheap guys, then you're getting to the Astros. I would certainly like it to be the Astros because they just have so much power in this park. Tucker and Alvarez, I think, are 2 of the best plays on the entire slate. But again, if you're getting a lot of Shohei Ohtani, the Yankees become really useful because outside of Judge, Torres, and Stanton, everybody in this lineup is 3,300 or less on DraftKings. And they're not the best hitters, but they do have some power upside. Volpe has power. Bader has some power. McKinney can do some damage, especially in this park. So can Jake Bauers leading off. So it really, I think, as far as exposure goes, it depends on what I'm doing with pitching. I certainly would prefer getting to the Astros if I can, though.
It's another tricky game. Like, when you look at this, is it easy for you to rank it? Because I feel like it's pretty balanced, but slight lean to pitching. But I don't even know if I believe that.
I think it leans pitching for me just because pitching is not great on this slate. And I do like the Schmidt's only getting Schmidt and Javier both are only getting 14-15% ownership. But yeah. I think I'd go Javier, Schmidt, Astros, Yankees.
Okay. This is just one of those where I look at it honestly, pretty close to Brewers Pirates, where I think you can make a pretty decent case for any real piece of it if you wanted to. The park really helps if you're a bats guy. I don't really care too much about Javier or Schmidt. The park certainly plays up power. If you want to lean more towards Yankees bats and Astros bats, totally makes sense to me. It's a really and you're seeing it in the ownership with Javier and Schmidt being right next to each other, relatively balanced ownership for the Yankees and Astros. There's just not a lot of separation.
Agreed.
Scary.
Individually, though, this game does have 3 of the best hitting plays on the slate: Judge, Tucker, and Alvarez.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't say I disagree there.
and I do really like the Jake Bauers leading off at 2,500 piece.
Anything else for Yankees Astros?
Nope.
Cardinals and Twins. 4.3 run implied total for the Cardinals, 4.7 for the Twins. Matt, I never get your last name right, so I'm not going to bother going for the Cardinals.
Liberatore.
Sonny, yeah, sure. It's just not that in my brain, and I'll never make it anything else. Sonny Gray going for Minnesota. That one I can say. No ownership going to Cardinals, Matt. 11% going to Sonny Gray. Talk to me about your boy, Sonny Gray, and why is he not pulling a little bit more ownership?
Yeah, I mean, ownership has actually come up a little bit since this morning. I just think it's tough to get to that price because when you think about what you're going to be, like somebody had asked in chat a minute ago if I start my lineups with pitchers or hitters, and I said that neither because I just use optimizers and spreadsheets and shit. But if you think about it as if you were hand building and what lineups look like where you're selecting Sonny Gray, such a high percentage of those lineups are going to be either you get the hitters that you want and then you can afford Gray, but you also can afford to get to Urias or you can afford to get to Ohtani. Also, Mitch Keller projects a little bit better than Gray, and he's 300 less. So anytime you can get Gray, you can get Keller. But then also, there's going to be a lot of lineups where let's say you started with Sonny Gray in this hypothetical, you put together the stacks that you want, and you're like, oh wait, I could really upgrade one of the bats in this lineup by just going from Sonny Gray down to pick your favorite, $7,500 to $8,500 guy. And so it just doesn't leave that many lineups where you're wanting to get to Gray, especially now that the ownership has come up a little bit. I thought he was actually a little bit more interesting this morning when he was getting 6% ownership to Keller's like 17 or 18. Now it's 17 Keller, 12 Gray. So he's fine. He's a good pitcher. It's not an ideal strikeout matchup against the Cards. They do still have dangerous hitters in this lineup. He's only striking out about 23% of hitters this year, which is fine, but it's not the same level that Sonny Gray typically is at. It's a little bit watered down. It's actually more than a little bit watered down. It is a watered down Cardinals lineup. This is probably why Gray's ownership came up. No Nolan Arenado, no Wilson Contreras, no somebody else. Matter's in there. Brendan Donovan's hurt, so maybe that's him. But Matter's usually not in the lineup. Kisner's not normally in the lineup. You don't have Arenado, so it is a better spot than normal when you're facing the Cardinals, and that does make Gray look a little bit more appealing than he was this morning.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Twins because that's certainly the team you're going to be going to if you're going to anything here. They are fourth in top stack, first in top value, which is very obvious to see as you start looking at their salaries. They are third in ownership, so they are getting owned, and they are basically properly owned based on our stack score. How do you see Minnesota here?
They scare me because they do look good in terms of they are cheap. They have a 4.5 implied run total. Liberatore has not put it together at the major league level. Most pitchers, it seems like with the Cardinals now, just do not put it together, which is just a wild contrast to how the Cardinals have been most of our lives. But 13.6% K percentage to righties, 233 expected ISO, 416 expected WOBA. All of that looks good. Like Correa, Farmer, Solano, Polanco, all from the right side, 1 through 4. Ryan Jeffers hitting 6th at catcher. My concern is that the Twins have been really aggressive with pinch hitters this year. We've seen games more than once where they're going against an opener and they would start like Julian against a right-handed opener, and then the left-handed follower would come in and they would put Farmer in the game and take Julian out. So I am concerned about, in particular, Kyle Farmer and, well, specifically Farmer, but also Solano, just because they are hitting toward the top of the order, and you could just very easily see them disappear as soon as Liberatore leaves the game. But they're also reasonably priced. So they're still playable. I'm just concerned about them. But Carlos Correa, Polanco, Jeffers look good. Julian's in the starting lineup, so he's not somebody you have to worry about being pinch hit for. They're starting him lefty-lefty. So overall, I like the Twins. I just am a little concerned about the pinch hit risk for guys that aren't normally in the lineup like Farmer.
Now, to be fair, your boy Matt has allowed 0 home runs at home. So based on Sean V's logic, he will never do that. So, good luck with the Twins. And in this case, we should probably be rostering your boy Matt if we know that he is unable to give up a home run at home.
That is true. I know SMP was getting
pretty
to him
good,
this
right?
morning.
If you throw that out.
Yeah. I know SMP was getting to him this morning, and the way that I responded was that I don't hate it, and I also hope that I'm not doing it. He is $5,600 and getting 1% ownership. So from the standpoint of Jamison Tyone sucks, or doesn't suck, but he's not very good, and he's getting 19% ownership. Hauser's getting 15% ownership. From that standpoint, sure, you can make the case Liberatore is going a little bit under owned. You can make the case even that Sears and Weaver are going under owned, from that standpoint. But also, you're talking about one spot in a lineup of 10. I don't anticipate getting to much Liberatore.
Can you imagine saying, no, don't roster him, though? $5,600 pitcher that you're guaranteeing doesn't give up a home run. You're probably walking into a decent game here. And you're like, nah, that's fine. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely at a price tag where if the Twins don't do well, he kind of has to do well.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. It's weird how these like breaks in logic just don't work for most people. You don't know how long he pitches. I bet it's a lot longer than it would have been if he gave up home runs. I'll bet my life it's longer if he doesn't give up a dinger.
I don't know how long he pitches, but I do know he won't give up a home run.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have a Ouija board for that one? You know the outcomes, but no concept of how many pitches he's capable of throwing.
Yeah. Which, I mean, the answer is probably not a ton, but
yeah, I don't know, 5 innings if things are going well.
Yeah.
Oh man. Sometimes I just wonder how we end up here saying these things and not understanding how impossibly incorrect you sound when you do. Do you want to roster any Cardinals bats against your boy, Sonny Gray?
Not particularly, especially with how bad this lineup looks. I mean, it's still a 6-game slate, but we have them second from the bottom in top stack percentage. It's not a good matchup. You're not really getting much negative correlation with the field. Like on a slate of this size, I'm more inclined to go to like the Mariners against Ohtani than the Cardinals against Gray, even though obviously it's a better matchup for the Cardinals than it is for the Mariners.
Your favorite Cardinals bet?
So 106 expected ISO to lefties for Gray, 147 to righties. Nothing that really stands out there. I mean, it's probably like if you're factoring in salary, it's probably Jordan Walker at 2,800 batting cleanup. If you're just overall, probably Paul Goldschmidt because he's Paul Goldschmidt.
I do not hope Sean V wins to Maine so he could gloat in chat. Please don't let that happen ever, especially if it's like if it happens the way that he's just talking. No, he's gonna win one day with like a random, Cardinals Matt starter lineup because the Twins can't hit a home run. He's gonna walk into this randomness and it's going to be painful. Very, very painful. Rank the game.
Twins, Gray, Cards, Liberatore.
This is the first game where I think there is a very obvious final spot. Thank God. Had to get one eventually. Yeah. I think you can make a case for everybody else to not be in that spot. What you should do, though, guys, this is easy. Sign up at PrizePicks. I'm not going to tell you why you should be on PrizePicks or any of the other pick'em sites. I personally think you should hit as many as you can if you've got the money for it, because you're getting bonus cash for every sign up. And this one's no different. Click the link in the description. You'll get up to $100 on your first deposit, and you'll get a month of Stochastic Plus Platinum. It's a fantastic deal. You're going more or less on different projections. So you could do strikeouts, runs, outs, hitter scores, pitcher scores, total bases, RBIs, the standard props that you're used to at sportsbooks. But it's not just MLB. You can do NFL, WNBA, the big three if you want to get really weird. KBO is still out there, tennis, MMA, boxing, all that stuff. I do a PrizePicks video 6 days a week, 5-1 yesterday. Unfortunately, 2-2 today. Thanks, Francisco Lindor. But you can't win them all. We will try. I don't have all that many that I could ask you right now just because so much of it happened on the early slate. But let's see what we have, what I can give you, and where we're going to land. So we're going to look at hitter fantasy scores, which are right here. Let's go to Yordan Alvarez, more or less than 7.5 fantasy points.
I didn't even need to hear the number, but more.
I would go ahead and agree with you on that one. How about Aaron Judge, more or less than 8.5 fantasy points?
So many more.
There we go. And then final play. How is this still on here? All right. We're going to go to it, I guess. I have it here. Cody Bellinger. We're about to get to it now. Over more or less than 7.5 fantasy points.
A lot more.
Okay.
Like, are we talking first at bat?
Those are the mores coming from Adam. Come check out PrizePicks. But honestly, guys, build yourself a bankroll. Hit all of these sites. Well, here we go. The Chicago Cubs taking on the Cincinnati Reds. 5.7 run implied total for the Cubs. 4.7 for the Reds. The Cubs are the number one stack in top stack. The number one stack in ownership. Just out of curiosity, Adam, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do the past 2 days matter for the Cubs ownership today?
What did I say yesterday too?
Yes, you did. Are they going to be able to be the top stack 3 days in a row? Has any team ever been good 3 days? No chance. I don't know how we're going to do this one. Jamison Taillon, 20% owned for the Cubbies. Luke Weaver, not owned. What do you want to do with Taillon here? Because I see the upside. It's also scary.
Yeah, it is. He showed up actually the most in the Sims video earlier. I said it on the video, like I was getting like 36%. If I end up there, great. It's not any worse than other things I could do with SP2 on this slate. If I get a lot less, also don't mind. Like, it's ideally I'm spreading out exposure amongst these cheap pitchers, but it's also already pretty spread out. 21% to Wu, 20 to Taillon, 16 to Hauser, 15 to Schmidt, 13 to Javier. Taillon is the second cheapest of that group. He has been legitimately good against righties this year. You have a pretty balanced Cincinnati lineup. Skews lefty heavy at the top with 4 lefties in the top 6, which isn't exactly what you want to see. It's a good point per dollar play. I don't have any reason to be confident in him, but again, I don't have any reason to be confident in like any of the pitchers on this slate. So he's fine. I think it's a spot where I probably get a good amount of Reds and a good amount of Taillon.
You mean to tell me that you don't want to get to Luke Weaver, who's been surprisingly decent? This man has a 6.8 ERA, a 6.1 FIP, and a 5 xFIP.
Who said he's been decent?
Who do you think said that?
Yeah, he has not been that. He's one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball. And no, I don't want to get to him. Like I said a minute ago when we were talking about Liberatore, if you want to make the pure, like, you're getting a 15-1 discount from Hauser to him case, sure. And you also get the negative leverage case where if he pitches well, your very popular Cubs are not doing well. But that doesn't carry nearly as much weight for me as it does when it's the inverse, because even the most popular offense isn't going to be that popular. Whereas, like somebody like Shohei Ohtani, he's going to get 50% ownership. And if you stack against him and they come through, you just knocked off 50% of the field. You don't get that same sort of powerful pivot or leverage spot from pitching. So I don't anticipate getting to Weaver. It's a 5.8 implied run total for the Cubs. They have the highest implied run total on the slate. They're first in top stack score, or in top stack percentage. They're first in stack score, tied with the Twins. They look great. Again, it really just comes down to, can you make lineups that are low enough owned that you can win a tournament or have a reasonable chance while still getting to the Cubs? From a 5-man stacking standpoint, they're all popular. Every hitter in the lineup except for Candelario and Madrigal are at least 12% owned on DraftKings, but none of them are projected over 20%. Candelario and Madrigal 8 and 9%. I do think the Cubs are a much worse stack the higher in stakes you are playing.
Yeah.
You can make the case that, well, it's a smaller field tournament, so I don't need to worry about ownership as much, but they are going to be extremely popular there. In your larger field stuff, you're looking at around 16.5% aggregate ownership, popular, but nothing crazy. I know last night, 8-game slate instead of 6 in the $250 Formax, 355 entries. Like every player on this team was at least 25% owned. It was like them and the Dodgers. So I do think I think I'm likely to be getting to a good amount of the Cubs in large field, even though they're popular, just because the ownership's still going to be spread out enough that it's not a huge concern. I would be surprised if I'm playing them in higher stake stuff because I expect them to be wildly overowned.
You went a little bit longer than I was expecting. I was teed up, ready to really let Sean B rip with this Weaver nonsense, but we're past it now. It's too easy. It's too easy. I'm fascinated by the Reds here. Like, they're pulling a little bit more ownership than I expected them to, and that's really going to mitigate it a little bit. But man, that 20% ownership on Taillon on the opposite side is just so juicy for a red stack in this environment.
Yeah, it's nice because, like you said, Taillon's getting 20% ownership. You do have 4 lefties in the top 6 here. Now, the problem is TJ Friedl doesn't have a lot of power. Jake Fraley doesn't have a ton of power. Like, they can still get it done against Tyon. You're talking about somebody that's allowed a 404 expected WOBA and a 290 expected ISO to lefties this year. But against right-handed pitching, sub 100 expected ISO this season for Friedl, 159 for Fraley. That's not nothing, but it's not ideal. De La Cruz obviously has a lot of power. I love the spot for him. There haven't been many games or many slates where I have really liked De La Cruz because of this price tag. And I still hate the price tag, given that it's just basically for his ceiling and not for his average outcomes. But you're getting a pitcher with a 16% strikeout percentage against left-handed bats that does not do a good job of controlling for the quality of contact against him either. And you're putting a guy up there that hits the ball as hard as anyone and has swing and miss stuff, strikes out 30% of the time, but you're telling me that he's probably just not going to be able to strike him out. De La Cruz looks amazing. I like Joey Votto a lot. So those two are the pieces I really like. But then, Fraley at 4,300, certainly reasonable. Friedl at 4,200 is reasonable. And then the righties individually don't look great, but that doesn't mean you can't play them in stacks. Matt McLain, Spencer Steer, Encarnacion, these guys are all fine if you're stacking. It's just, or, even as one-offs, like if you're playing a lot of lineups, it's not like I'm setting a rule saying, if I have a right-handed Reds hitter, I have to have 5 Reds or something. But the lefties here are where you're really looking first, and De La Cruz and Votto in particular.
Currently winning $25. Now we got it going. Oh, man. Yeah, I love this game once again. Rank the game, which I think is a very interesting conversation. Although I think I know how you're going to do this.
Yeah, I think it's Cubs. It's Cubs 1.
Yeah.
It's Weaver 4.
Yeah.
I think it's Tyon 2 and Reds 3 just because you sort of have fewer cheap pitching options than you do stacks.
It's so close.
But again, that's a spot where it really depends on what you need in your lineup. Like if you're hypothetically hand building a lineup, I don't have a strong lean where I'm saying you should definitely play Tyon and not the Reds. Or you should definitely play the Reds and not Tyon. If you need a cheap pitcher in that lineup, go for Tyon. If you have your pitching sorted out, then go for the Reds.
Yeah. It's just a tricky spot in general. I like the Reds because of Tyon.
Yeah.
If Tyon were 10%, I probably wouldn't say it the same way, but it just feels like a really nice. I don't feel like the Reds are getting as much as they should.
The other thing that makes me lean a little bit towards Tyon, in addition to him being 6,200 and not having a lot of comps in that price range, is just that, again, not that the lefties here can't do damage, but they don't exactly have left-handed power hitters in this lineup outside of a couple.
Fun game. All right.
Yeah. Game of the day in my article.
I know what the answer to this question is going to be, but how many runs did the Cubs score today?
You said how many runs do they score?
Yeah.
6.
Okay. I knew it was either that or 5. They were the only 2 answers I knew I was getting from you.
Which way am I going to round?
Yeah. It's going to be a really interesting slate for you when we have this 6-gamer and everybody scores 4 or 5 or potentially 6 runs. Very narrow bands. You might want to not stack tonight, right? Isn't that what usually happens when all those scores are low and together? It's all the 1-off 9-time boner lineups.
Yeah, just make the Aaron Judge, Tucker, Alvarez, De La Cruz lineup. I think at this point you need 2 4K pitchers, but
Cardinals, Matt and Hauser.
Yeah,
taking you to the promised land. All right, guys. 660 people in the house, 100 and change likes. Adam mentioned his sim video before. I'm going to mention it again right now. You should check out Adam's Sims video, and you should check out the Sims. Links in the description. $180. It's not going to be cheap, but this is the next step in DFS. It is revolutionary to a degree. This has not been a tool that has existed in this industry before, and now it's big time. You could upload up to 5,000 lineups now. Am I right?
10,
or is it more?
10.
It's 10? Up to 10,000 lineups. That's a pretty decent start. You could really simulate a nice contest. You can change the amount of payout structure at the top. Also a new feature that we've just added. But this is going to take this pool of lineups. It's going to simulate them against themselves. And you're going to get ROI for individual players. You're going to get ROI for each stack. You're going to get ROI data for the lineups in general. So much data to help you pick out the lineups that are going to make you better. Undoubtedly, this is going to improve your process. I don't know what you totally have, but you're going to go from at least a little bit more help to a ton more help. It's costly, but you should check it out now because we also have PGA and the NFL is going to be here before you know it. So click the link in the description. Slate doesn't start till 7:15. Now I'm going to get you guys will be able to get in right at the top of the hour, a crisp 6 o'clock. Why would I want to go long, guys? Why would I want to go long? All righty. I don't have a cursor on my screen right now. Okay. We're in. Angels and Mariners. 4.6 run implied total for the Angels. 3.8 for the Mariners. Shohei Ohtani on the hill for the Angels. Brian Wu going for the Mariners. 45% ownership going to Shohei Ohtani. He is 11K. 20% ownership going to Wu. He is 7,500. How do you want to manage Shohei Ohtani for today?
I mean, I want to get a good amount of him. I will say in the Sims video, I was under the field. I talked about it in the video. That's the kind of thing that certainly can change between whenever I put that out at like 2 or 3 and now, or at, unlock, because you do get lineups coming out. You get some unexpected value, ownership changes and all of that. But I was getting around 30%. He's projected around 50. He's far and away the number one pitcher on this slate. You are paying for him. The 11K price tag on DraftKings isn't super prohibitive, I don't think, because you do have so many cheap options today. Not that any of them are particularly good, but chances are somebody out of Wu, Schmidt, Tyon, Hauser, Sears for the purpose of this conversation is going to have a good start, where if you paired them with Ohtani, you spent 17K or so at pitcher and could do pretty much what you wanted with the bats. But he is facing a team that has plenty of power. They are hitting in one of the best parks in baseball. One thing that I do really like about Ohtani is that we don't have the Mariners lineup yet, but the only 2 real power hitting lefties they have are Cal Raleigh and Mike Ford, if you want to include him. Like, he hits for power, but it's not like he's a bona fide major league hitter or anything. Ohtani has had much more issues, or much bigger issues rather, with left-handed power. 212 expected ISO this year to lefties, only 128 to righties. So if you had like Rodriguez, Suarez, Hernandez as left-handed hitters, I'd be a lot more scared of this spot. But given that most of the power bats on the Mariners right-handed, that sets up well for Ohtani. So, from a, I guess, broader standpoint, everybody watching this stream, I assume if you are paying attention to MLB DFS in August, you don't need me to tell you that Shohei Ohtani is the best pitcher on the slate, but he is getting a lot of ownership, and it is at least a reasonable approach to not play quite as much as the field of the $11,000, 45% owned pitcher in a good hitter's park. The problem on DraftKings is then you have to, it's difficult enough on DraftKings to figure out who you're playing with Ohtani. Yeah. Having to choose 2 of those guys really sucks.
Yeah. Who do you have to play instead of him is a very different conversation.
Right. 38% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher.
Yeah. I got it a hair higher than that too. I'm a fan.
Well, I mean, we all know that you just jam in the most expensive pitchers every slate.
It's really, I really don't. I do,
or
but I don't.
You jam in the guy in course. It's never anything in between.
The course thing hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah. I think your sim was working better when it was.
That's probably true. I mean, I haven't changed anything. I've made no core changes from the beginning. Brian Wu, 7,500, 20% owned here against the Angels. How do you feel about it?
It terrifies me, but
yeah,
so does everybody else. 7,500. He has good strikeout stuff. 16.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 21% projected ownership for the season since coming up from Double-A. He struck out 25.8% of hitters, 4.09 xFIP. That stuff's all solid. The reason this is a terrifying spot for me, one, he's going from one of the best parks for suppressing runs in Seattle to one of the worst parks in Anaheim. And 2 is he has huge splits here, which they're likely to converge. It's still a small sample size. They're going to come together a bit, but it's also very reasonable to think that a pitcher who didn't pitch above Double-A prior to coming to the majors probably has some things that he needs to figure out, and he's trying to do it against the best hitters on the planet now. Lefties have only struck out 16% of the time, 392 expected WOBA, 243 expected ISO. Those are Jameson Tyone-esque numbers against lefties. He's striking righties out 33% of the time, 214 expected WOBA, sub 100 expected ISO. Now, you can't play Shohei Ohtani, but he's still hitting, and his stats still count for, against Wu. So brutal spot there. Renhefo will be hitting from the left side leading off. Moustakas left-handed batting cleanup. Moniak's hitting sixth. Matt Dice is in there. So you have very similar to the Reds. You have six lefties here. Five of them. No, four lefties. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, five lefties. Four of them in the top six. It's a really scary spot for Wu. But, again, sell me on what pitcher isn't in a really scary spot.
Let's talk bats here. 11th in ownership for the Mariners, 10th in ownership for the Angels. Obviously, you cannot roster Shohei Ohtani as a hitter for today. Which team do you think you're more likely to stack, if at all?
I was getting to more Seattle in the Sims tool. I'd certainly like to get to more of the Angels. You have value here, so it's difficult because you're losing. Not only are you losing the best hitter in baseball from the stack, the guy most likely to do damage in the stack, you can't roster him, but it also just limits the combinations that you can make of that stack. But it is a good value stack. Renhefo 3,500 at second base should be a pretty popular option. Moustakas batting cleanup at 2,900. Moniak's 5,100, but he's good enough. You have a pretty cheap catcher in Matt Dice. So I like the Angels more, but the Mariners are just that team where, like I said, I had a lot of the Orioles and White Sox on the early slate because it was a 4-game slate, and the easiest path to first was having a 50+% owned pitcher fail. It's the same kind of thing here. Obviously a little bit bigger slate, so the opportunity cost of getting to a low probability team like Seattle is higher than on the early, but it's the same sort of thing where if Ohtani is 45-50% owned, you can just eliminate half the field by saying, well, if this offense does well. So I don't anticipate Seattle being like my highest owned team or anything like the Orioles were on the early, but I think that the fact that they're still so cheap, they do have a lot of power in their lineup, and they negatively correlate so strongly with the field makes them pretty interesting.
All right. Anything else you want to touch on for this game in particular? Like, this one feels like a spot where you might have to just swallow hard, take some bats, and not really enjoy the stance that you're taking.
I guess just to to put a little bit more context to what I was saying about Seattle in the sense of a shorter slate. Right now we have them with a 5% chance of being the top stack. That is third lowest on the slate. It's only ahead of the Cardinals and the A's. But think about what like a 12-game slate looks like. Every team you're playing has like a 5% chance of being the top stack. Yeah. So it's not, it's low. It's a low chance for the slate, but it's not like on a, 12-game slate when, you're never recommending playing that like 1% team. Like it's still a real chance at them being the top stack, even though, 95% of the time they're not going to.
Yeah. And half of the field is already out if you're right.
Right. Just and that's before even getting to the fact that they're projected for 3 to 4% ownership.
Yeah.
It just makes
you're not competing with anybody, and half of the field already doesn't have anything to run you down with otherwise.
Right. Like they don't even have to be, we have them with a 5% chance of being the top scoring stack. They don't even have to be the actual top scoring stack for it to be a contender in tournaments, because it's just eliminating so many of those Cub stacks and Twin stacks and Dodger stacks to where, you just don't have that much competition.
Yeah, so many of the other teams have already lost because of Ohtani if the Mariners succeed.
Right.
Now, and that's not going to happen frequently, 5% the way that we say it, or maybe, call it 7 or 8 if they're first or second.
Yeah, and the other nice thing about Seattle is that they do have power. So this isn't like when you're saying like, oh, I'm stacking the A's because, for the same reasons. But when the A's score 5, the Mariners can score 5 runs here and potentially be a tournament winning stack if it's just like 4 home runs. The tournament that I won like a week and a half ago with the Mariners, I think they ended up scoring like 8 runs or something, but it wasn't even like every player in the stack did well. I think I was one of the only teams at the top that actually had a Seattle stack. It's very easily for the slate to just break down where it's like, there isn't one clear cut top team. You're not going to have a 16 run outburst every single slate, especially on these shorter ones. It could very easily just be, a bunch of teams score 5-6 runs, but the Mariners give you that easier path to first because the Ohtani teams are gone.
Rank the game.
Ohtani, Wu, Angels, Mariners. But again, I think there's a decent chance I get to the Mariners ahead of the Angels, but like clearly the Angels have to be ranked ahead of the team facing Ohtani.
Yeah. And now we close it out. Final game. Hit that like button if you haven't done it already. Dodgers and A's. 5.4 run implied total for the Dodgers, 3.3 for the A's. Julio Urias going for the Dodgers. JP Sears going for the A's. Sears not really owned and probably shouldn't be. Urias is 40% owned. What do you want to do here? Because obviously Oakland's not very good.
Yeah, Urias hasn't been great this year either. Like his numbers are not those of a $9,800 pitcher this season. Obviously, generally in the past he's been better. 22.6% K percentage, 4.38 xFIP. It's just so difficult to to completely get away from him or anything on a slate like this for the same reasons. It's just if you're not playing Urias because you're concerned about his production this year or whatever, you have to start naming other pitchers that you aren't concerned about on this slate, and that doesn't happen. So in the Sims tool earlier, I think I had around 30% of him, I had around 30% of Ohtani. So like I was under the field, but not by massive amounts or anything like that. Still was in a situation where if they do well, I have plenty of lineups that aren't dead. If you're playing single entry, I think they're still very good single entry plays. They're not musts by any stretch, but there's not like a well, I wouldn't play them here, but I would play them here. Like, I think they're good plays. I think the ownership's a little problematic given that there is reason to be concerned, but it's a nice park upgrade for Oakland, but at the same time, sub 3 implied run total here. Urias has given up more power both this year and historically to left-handed hitters. Strikeouts are higher against lefties, so kind of a trade-off there, but all in all, it's the lowest implied run total on the slate. It's the best spot on the slate. It's not the best pitcher, but the A's have an implied run total 0.8 of a run below the Mariners against Ohtani.
Yeah, that's massive. Any Sears?
He's my preferred of the three guys getting no ownership. Sears 2%, Liberatore 1.5, Weaver 1. I prefer Sears. He just has the best strikeout stuff. He also has a brutal matchup against the Dodgers. I don't want a lot of Sears. I do know he was showing up, here and there in like my top simulated ROI lineups earlier, where for the one where it really stood out, I think it was like my third highest ROI lineup was a Cubs stack. And so I was like, okay, this should be interesting. Like, how did I construct a Cubs stack that the most popular team on the slate that is still showing up as one of the best overall lineups? And the immediate answer was, okay, I have JP Sears. If JP Sears pitches well, and especially if Taillon struggles or whatever, like if you were putting together a stack where like you have the Cubs and then you have De La Cruz and Votto, so like you're leveraging against Taillon, you have the Cubs, but then it's like, okay, what I have two bats that can beat Jameson Taillon. I have JP Sears that is live to beat Taillon. He's going to beat him more than 1 in 15 times. Sure. So like that sort of lineup, he makes some sense, but I don't anticipate getting much. It's an absolutely brutal spot against the Dodgers.
How much Dodgers do you expect to get to? Second in top stack, second in ownership, not quite second in stack score because these dudes are pretty expensive.
Yeah, their prices don't really bother me though, is the thing, because as a stack, you can make it pretty cheap without sacrificing a ton. Obviously you're sacrificing in the sense that Freddie Freeman's a hell of a lot better than Chris Taylor, but you're not sacrificing relative to like the field. You can play the cheap guys here and they're still good. So if you double pay down at pitcher and roll the dice there, sure, Betts, Freeman, Smith, JD, if he's in the lineup, Muncy, like any of those guys are really good in a stack, but you can also get better pitching and just include Ahmed Rosario, Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez with, two of the good hitters, and it's not that expensive. So I do like the Dodgers. The ownership is somewhat problematic, just like we were saying with the Cubs. I do think I'm likely to get to the Cubs at similar ownership before the Dodgers just because of the pricing. You can just get better teams in general around them. But I do think it's a big difference between like the Dodgers and the Braves. The Dodgers and Braves both have that 1 through 5 where it's just like, man, how do I get these guys together? But the Dodgers then give you value at the bottom of the order, whereas the Braves just give you no value whatsoever.
A's bats against Urias.
Really tough sell. I mean,
yeah,
I like Brent Rooker at 3,300 because he won't get ownership and he's a good hitter with a lot of power. Other than that, I mean, the A's, the case for the A's is the same as for the Mariners, except for you also have to account for the gap between like Julio Rodriguez, Suarez, Hernandez, Raleigh, and this garbage on the A's in terms of talent.
Adam, if someone wanted to get one Zoom a week to help build lineups for the slate of their choice, what would you set that price at? I said $1,000.
I mean, it would be something like and it's not worth. I'm not claiming it's worth that. Like
probably is.
It probably isn't, but the reason
depends which slate he's picking, I guess. If it's like a turbo slate in the middle of where, like, the best that you could win is 5K, then I'll help you work that one out.
No, I mean the reason, like, people have asked me in the past for that kind of stuff. The reason I don't do it is the price that I would put on my time to talk about DFS more than I already do is so much higher than the value anybody's getting from talking to me about DFS.
Yep. But you want to Zoom with me for $1,000? I'll take that check all day, every day. Favorite stacks? Don't you dare take a drink.
Cubs. Again, you have to find ways to work around the ownership, but Cubs, Pittsburgh, Cincy.
Favorite pitchers?
Ohtani. Put two names in a hat and pick them out. I do like, jokes aside, I do like that Javier and Schmidt are getting less ownership than Tyon, Hauser, Wu.
I think Javier is the most interesting guy in that sort of scenario just because of his ownership.
What'd you say?
I think Javier is the most interesting pitcher on today's slate because of his ownership.
In my article, I include like the 3 top pitchers, and obviously 1 and 2 were Ohtani and Urias.
Yeah.
And then 3, I'm looking at him like, do I really need to write Jameson Tyon? But I went Javier just because he's the one pitcher on this slate, to an extent Schmidt too, because he also has a very favorable matchup in terms of platoon. But Javier's the one non-Urias or Ohtani pitcher on the slate that I can look at the opposing lineup and make a coherent case for why he could, or why he is relatively likely to actually go out there and dominate. Every other pitcher, it's like, it's baseball. Maybe they'll pitch well. Javier, and again, like, he gives up power. That's horrible in Yankee Stadium. But you can at least look at that lineup and say, 1, this lineup isn't very good. 2, this lineup is right-handed heavy, and this guy strikes out 31% of righties. Like, that at least sets up relatively well.
Well, thank you to Jordan for producing the show. Thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring the show. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next. Hit the like button before those boys get in the door. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
What is happening, everybody? It is Thursday night, and typically on Thursday, Neil is out playing softball with his buddies, but not today. Softball season is over. So now Neil is here on Thursday, focused, honed in, ready to go and talk about MLB DFS. And we are sponsored by PrizePicks. If you guys haven't checked out PrizePicks, sign up using our link because it is going to get you one totally free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, all our data and tools for every single DFS sport. You get it just by signing up at PrizePicks. And oh, by the way, PrizePicks, you also get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit when you sign up. And Neil, we had an afternoon slate today. We got the night slate coming. Did you by chance play the afternoon slate?
I did play. I played it. So here was my. I still haven't really mastered the Sims, Greg. Like I gave myself 20 minutes to do the Sims, and I was trying to do 5,000, and I ran out of time. So I ended up I spent 20 minutes making Sims, and then I ended up going back to my old process at the last minute, and not even like a good approach where I really my old process. I just used the info that I had already put in Fantasy Cruncher, ended up using late swap optimizer. I only played like 20 lineups, but didn't go so well. How about you?
So I only played one lineup and actually did really well. I played single entry. I stacked the Orioles against Kevin Gausman, and then my pitchers for I played the dumbest lineups on small slates. I could just read it off right now. So my lineup that I played, which is in, let's see, 15th place in the 121 single entry. It is Jack Flaherty and Brandon Pfaadt as the pitchers who had no ownership. I was like the only one who played them. And then, Orioles stack against Kevin Gausman, who was super popular. And then I had one-offs of Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, and Travis Jankowski. So secondary stack of the Rangers. So yeah, right now in 15th place in the 121 single entry.
Okay.
By playing what a lot of people would have said was a really dumb lineup if I was telling people that was what I was playing on, if we were doing it on the show.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's so how much are you winning in 15th place?
Not that much. It's $400.
Okay. Still.
But better than nothing.
We'll take
better than nothing.
We'll take profit.
Profitable early slate. And no issues with that whatsoever. And let's see, do we have some super chats coming in? It looked like I saw a super chat there from Chris Williams. Where'd it go? Of course, how come this only happens at the top of the show or just my browser crashes as I'm about to do something of significance and then it just goes away? So I'm going to pull this back up here in a second. Do you have it pulled up in front of you, the super chat?
Yeah, so Chris was here. Let me see. I can actually pull what he says. Just to say, great dong picks yesterday. You both were spot on. Your great knowledge helped me and another Apple coworker have a great night yesterday. I did not even remember. I saw that Mookie left early. I did not actually check in to see that he hit another home run last night. Crushing it.
Oh,
my model is right. Just awesome.
He was your home run pick for last night. So that is
and apparently yours true. Hit too. Who was your home run pick last night?
Last night I went with, I had a really obscure home run pick. I think that I picked somebody who homered. Oh no, I had Dansby Swanson last night who did homer.
Yeah.
So yesterday I forgot. Yeah, last night was a really good slate as well. I think I ended up on like 65% Cubs stacks. And the Cubs were the team to stack yesterday.
Very much so.
Luke Maile came in, and he was so I don't think I've ever seen this before. Luke Maile, who is the backup catcher for the Reds, pitched in consecutive games.
He pitched?
Yeah, position player pitching because they just got their ass kicked 2 consecutive days.
I guess the Cubs have been just destroying them. Maybe they can make it 3 consecutive days.
We are about to find out, and stuff that we're definitely going to wade through over the course of the show. And yeah, tons of. Oh, by the way, David Vitti in chat saying that he cashed on that, and he said thank you. So it looks like he went out and bet Dansby Swanson to homer. But yeah, played a whole bunch of Cub stacks yesterday. Pitching was a little sketchy on the slate, but I did come out slightly ahead. So always good when that ends up happening. And I do see that Chris Williams gifted out 10 Stochastic DFS subscriptions. So Chris, thank you for that. And then he's also left a super chat here, like you had said. Now I can actually read it off. Just to say, great dong picks yesterday. The best dong picks on the internet, without a doubt. You both were spot on. Your great knowledge helped me and another Apple coworker have a great night yesterday. So, I mean, we were chalk donkeys for sure by recommending the Cubs yesterday, but ended up, they put up a lot of runs. So definitely ended up being on the right end of that. And then Ace of Spade is here. He wants to know who our picks are for DK tiers. So could you pull up Josh's Twitter account? I'm not sure if he posted the tiers or not.
I'm one step ahead of you. He did.
Okay. And also Malukar has gifted 5 YouTube memberships in there. So Malukar as well.
These guys, very generous.
Shout out to Malukar. Let's
And
go
somebody
ahead.
was asking yesterday, and I meant to respond to it. Somebody was asking, is this like a full membership? And we just want to be clear that these are YouTube memberships. So it's just a membership to,
Yes.
I think it just allows you to like use emojis and stuff in chat. It's not a stochastic.
You get
like,
free super
site.
chats also with it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, you get I forget like what the time frame is, but every once in a while you get some free super chats, and you get your name highlighted in green, which some people like to have that status, right? It's you don't want to be one of those scarlet letter people who don't have a green highlighted name. So it's like different stuff like that as well. All right, but anyway, we got a Malakar. Thank you for gifting out the YouTube subscriptions, and now let's also go and look at DK tiers for Ace of Spade. I've got lineups built out here. Did you find what Josh posted?
Sure did.
Tier 1. What Josh have in tier 1?
He's got Ellie De La Cruz, just at 26.1% Ellie De La Cruz, 26.0% Mookie Betts.
All right. I've got Freddie Freeman is my number 1 option in tier 1, followed by Mookie Betts. Tier 2. What is Josh looking at in tier 2?
Kyle Tucker, followed by Jordan Alvarez.
All right. So for me, Jordan Alvarez followed by Kyle Tucker. What order did Josh have those in?
He had Kyle Tucker first.
Okay. Jordan first for me. So now tier 3. Let me look at some of these other tiers, actually. Go ahead a little bit. So there are some other Cubs involved, because tier 3, I have Cody Bellinger, but then I have Altuve behind him. I was wondering how this correlates with some other tiers. I'm good with Cody Bellinger in tier 3, though.
Yeah. Josh also has Cody Bellinger in tier 3. No stack there. Tier 4,
Will Smith, who is going to correlate nicely with Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts in tier 1. So tier 4, Will Smith.
Josh setting up a nice stack here with Byron Buxton scratched. Is he playing? I think he's scratched today. Maybe he was scratched yesterday. Maybe he's back.
So check. The Twins starting lineup. I don't know if he was scratched or if he was just never in the lineup. Like, unless I'm mistaken.
Yesterday he was scratched. I don't know if he's in the lineup today, though.
He's not in the lineup, but I don't think he was ever in the lineup.
All right. So then Will Smith is number 2 for Josh.
Yeah. Unless I'm just misremembering and there was a lineup that came out I didn't see.
Yeah, no. I was saying he was scratched yesterday. I just wasn't sure if he was in the lineup today. So you're right.
Tier 5, I have Nico Horner at the top here, and more Cubs that we could roster.
So Josh has Carlos Correa at the top here, but it's all very close. And like Carlos Correa probably made more sense with Byron Buxton there as well. Like probably there was a little correlation in his sims. He does have his Brian Reynolds second and then Nico Horner third. They're all Nico Horner's 14%, Brian Reynolds 14.1, Correa 14.4. So I would probably go with Nico Horner if you're setting up the Cub stack with Bellinger.
Tier 6, I don't really think there's a clear option. Like I have Jake Fraley at the top, but it's super spread out. So I'm most apt to just say Heimer Candelario here just to get yourself more Cubs exposure.
Okay. Yeah. Josh has Jake Fraley 3% ahead of second place Lars Nootbaar. And in Josh's sims, he's got the correlation with Ellie De La Cruz. So maybe Jake Fraley makes more sense there.
All right. So depending where you're going with some of these other tiers, but I am going to go with, like I said, Heimer Candelario. Overall, if you're just doing like a one-off or playing a tiers cash game, and that's something people play, I do have Jake Fraley at the top, but I'll say Candelario to get ourselves some extra correlation going. Now, let's see what else we have as far as questions go. I see we've got even more. By the way, is there something wrong with my mic? People are saying it's echoey.
You don't sound any different to me.
Okay. Shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 more YouTube subscriptions. Does anybody else notice an echo? Because it doesn't seem to be an issue on Neil and Jordan's side there. Now we've got Hef Love says that he's 4th in the contest. He needs the game to end. So Hef Love is talking about the 121 single entry as well, and he's in 4th. So looks like he's slightly edged me out. But let's go Hef Love. Do you need the game to end? Do you just need your players to score more fantasy points? Do you still have guys going? We'll see. Let me see if I could pull up that contest and find Hef Love.
Which contest is it?
The 121 single entry, which I'm currently in 15th in. Hef Love, what is your DK handle? The contest did just end, by the way, I think. Are all the games? I think all the games are over. Are they not? Yeah, they're all over.
I believe so.
Yeah, they're all over. Curious where you ended up, where you ended there, Half-Love. Follow up with us. Let us know where you finished. Anyway, let's go ahead and start breaking down the pitchers. If you guys have not done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Now, about Guitar Z-Man 247, he's gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. So it is flying around here in the YouTube memberships.
Ooh, I got one
left and right.
I got one. Thank you.
Oh, that seems like a bug.
No, I didn't have one, so I needed it.
But I did not know, but you're blue.
I know, but I've never been able to use the emojis because I don't have, so now I can use emojis.
Oh my God. Interesting. I didn't realize that was a thing. I can't believe that it hasn't happened before, that none of us have randomly gotten it.
I have randomly gotten it before.
Wait, so you've gotten gifted multiple memberships while doing shows?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, these people just see Neil and they're like, he needs charity.
Yeah, they can tell.
That's how it goes.
They can tell I'm hurting.
Anyway, DFS slate. It's a Shohei Ohtani night. He is garnering a ton of ownership. By far the most popular, not just pitcher, but player of the entire night. It's a smallish slate, only 6 games. Shohei projected for 44% ownership. Neil, we're playing Shohei Ohtani in cash games. We're playing him to some extent in tournaments. But at 44%, are you okay getting with the field, over the field, under the field? How do you want to handle the most chalky player of the day?
So, Greg, I finally learned my lesson. Tonight, I am not using the Sims. I'm just using Lineup Generator. I currently have 70% Shohei Ohtani, and I'm okay with that. I mean, he's clearly the top pitcher on the slate. I'm willing to eat the chalk if the lineups look nice, and the lineups look nice for me. So I'm going well over the field on Shohei Ohtani. I have no issue. I cut back a little bit from, I think I initially got like 85%. I cut back to 70%, and I'm happy with that exposure. What are you doing with Shohei?
So what is it that made you cut back on him?
Just like I don't want to allocate that much to one player. Typically in a 20 lineup set, I'm okay being pretty condensed with my ownership, and Shohei Ohtani, if I'm going to do that anywhere, it's not the end of the world for me. I just decided, 85% felt a little bit rich for me. And just for mitigating risk a little bit. Like, it's not like, I don't think it's necessarily higher EV to get to less than 85%. I think it's just, I want to mitigate my risk, even when I'm only playing 20 laps. To some extent, I want to spread out my exposures. I know these are all good lineups that I'm getting in the lineup generator. I just want to make my good lineups diversified a little bit.
Understood. And well, by the way, a follow-up. Hef Love said that his DK name is the real Joe Ross. So not the fake Joe Ross, the real Joe Ross. So let's go ahead and see, has that tournament ended? And by the way, I finished in 13th when the dust settled, and the real Joe Ross 4th. So the real Joe Ross, Hef Love, good looks, finished 4th, $1,500 in the 121 single entry. Not too shabby there. So good afternoon there for Hef Love. Congrats on the win. And by the way, if anybody else ever wants to sign up for any of our packages at Stochastic, join us in the Discord chat where people could ask us questions throughout the day or ask us questions during the show. And there's a link below. It's going to get you 50% off any package when you sign up for the first time. If I go ahead and look at my current lineups, and some of this is going to have to change just because there are a couple of lineups that just came out with different players than we had projected. So for the Dodgers, I'm going to have to make changes because Miguel Rojas and Austin Barnes are in the lineup, and they were not initially projected in. And then on the A's side of the game, Tyler Soderstrom and Jonah Bride are in the lineup who are not projected in. The A's side is not going to make a massive difference in terms of my exposures. On the other side, though, the Dodgers side could a little bit. But if I go ahead and I look at the top 150 lineups that I favorited in the Sims tool, let's see, what is my Ohtani exposure currently looking like? And I am underweight to the field on Ohtani right now. Not crazily so. He is one of my more rostered players, but still, right now I have around 30% Shohei Ohtani, so that does have me coming in underweight to the field on that 45% mark. But now that there are some cheaper hitters in the Dodgers lineup, I think that'll probably push up my exposure to him a little bit. But it's looking like we do have some interesting pivot options to make at the high end as well. So I have no issues with Shohei Ohtani. I do think I'm going to come in just a little bit underweight to him, though. But there are some interesting pivot options, Neil. And I'm wondering who stands out to you as if you want to pay up for a pitcher who's not Shohei Ohtani. Where do you think you might look?
Yeah, first of all, like Ohtani, I just want to say, because I am playing so much, I do want to say he does look like he's a little bit overowned in the top pitchers duel, and he is the most expensive pitcher on the slate by far. So totally makes sense to me that you're only playing 30%. But I'm comfortable kind of any range of like, I don't think there's a wrong answer with Ohtani today. If you wanted to lock him in, I think that's fine. If you want to play 0%, totally fine. Also, as far as pivots off of Ohtani, I mean, Julio Urias feels like the obvious pivot. He's also the chalky pivot, getting 38% ownership, probably the second best pitcher on the slate and in the best matchup on the slate against Oakland. So I think that there's really a lot to like about Julio Urias, but he is the ownership is there. If you want to go contrarian, I think Mitch Keller makes a lot of sense at 17% ownership, 20% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Sonny Gray, I love playing Sonny Gray. Did not work out for me playing Twins pitcher yesterday, but Joe Ryan yesterday for the Twins, right? That was yesterday. 12% ownership for Sonny Gray, 18% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, another contrarian spend up option. So I think those are the top options for me. I guess that's basically all of them other than Christian Javier as far as like sort of spend up options. Javier looks good too, but he's playing against the Yankees, so I don't like him quite as much. Who do you like at the high end?
So I'm pretty underweight right now to Julio Urias. And to me, it's easier to get off of Urias than it is to get off of Shohei Ohtani, because Ohtani kind of exists in this price range by himself. He's also just so much better than the other pitchers that we have on the slate today.
Yeah.
But there are other guys that I just view as really comparable to Julio Urias, and not in terms of the matchup or anything, but Julio Urias is not as good as Sonny Gray. He's not as good as Mitch Keller, at least not this year. So I'm looking at these other pitchers in the high end. I really like getting to Mitch Keller at $9,100. He's a contrarian option that I like backing here. And, contrarian is relative. 15% owned on this slate for a 6-game slate is fairly contrarian. And, I'm well overweight to the field on Mitch Keller. He's the pitcher who, relative to ownership, I'm the most overweight to. And it's been a little bit of an up and down season, but for the most part, this has been a breakout year for Mitch Keller. He's seen increased velocity on his fastball dating back to the start of last year, and now it's actually leading to better results. So if I pull up the numbers on Mitch Keller for the year, pulling up this FanGraphs page right here so I could reference all of the numbers exactly, and then also look at some of his velocity stats. So Mitch Keller, who also at one point was a top pitching prospect, who had outstanding minor league numbers. And every time he'd get called up to the big leagues, it would be terrible for him. He'd get his ass kicked. He'd go back to the minor leagues. He dominated, gets called up to the big league, and it would just be this never-ending cycle. But now this year, 3.97 ERA, 3.82 expected ERA. And finally, the velocity has led to increased strikeouts, 25.7% K rate for Mitch Keller. And then also, I've referenced the fastball velocity. This year and last year, 95.5 miles per hour, whereas in previous years, it was at 94 miles per hour. Now I really think he's harnessing his stuff. It's leading to some of the better results, especially in that strikeout department. So Mitch Keller, the matchup against the Brewers isn't nearly as easy as a matchup against the Oakland A's, but all things put together, it's not a terrible matchup. So I'm going with Mitch Keller as my pivot play. Is he somebody that you're also overweight to the field to, or what are you doing with Mitch Keller?
Yeah, good question. So I do have 40% Julio Urias, so he is my second highest owned pitcher after Shohei Ohtani. I have 30% Mitch Keller, so I guess I am still getting pretty well above the field on Keller using the generator. 30%. He's coming in at what, 18%? What's the yes, he's coming in at 17% ownership, so I'm well over the field there too. I do like the Keller call as well. And the Yankees lineup, even Christian Javier, I mean, I didn't talk about it much, but like, it's not the best Yankees lineup, right? So it's not.
I don't think there is a best Yankees lineup this year. This has been a team that overall has been massively disappointing. And, we're seeing reporters saying, like, how could the Yankees have not made more moves at the trade deadline? Like, for what or for what reason? This isn't a contending team this year. I think people are just so programmed to say that the Yankees are a team that's contending. Therefore, they should be making moves at the deadline. I mean, it's just not their year this year. It's not the best lineup. A lot of it has been due to injury. Giancarlo Stanton is always injured on and off, in and out of the lineup.
He's back.
Aaron Judge missed a whole bunch of time. So those are definitely things that contribute to the overall numbers for the Yankees lineup being down. But then you even have guys who there was an expectation were going to be better this year. Volpe, one of the top prospects in baseball, and he's had his struggles this year. DJ LeMahieu, they signed to a big contract last year. He at one point was a really good hitter at Coors Field. Then even outside of that, he produced really well for the Yankees. He has been absolute dog shit this year. So you just have this Yankees lineup that's so thin. And then even their top guys, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, while they are individually good hitters, they strike out a lot and they give upside to opposing pitchers as well. The problem I have, though, is that Christian Javier himself has not had the best season overall. So I don't think he's a bad option, but the guy I gravitate towards in this price range is certainly Mitch Keller.
Yeah, I don't think I actually have any. No, maybe I have a little bit. I thought I saw Christian Javier somewhere, but you're right. I have a lot more Mitch Keller than Christian Javier. I think that he's playable, but not, certainly not a priority. Are you playing any Sonny Gray?
I'm sure some, but let's see. All right, Sonny Gray. Not like enough that's significant enough to point out.
I've only got 10%.
For a lot of the people who are watching the show that are just maybe building one lineup and want to know who to play in this range, like I think Shohei Ohtani at his price point, like I don't have an issue with it there. And Julio Urias, I don't necessarily have an issue with the price point itself. And obviously the matchup is great. He's just not my preferred option in that range. So if I'm just telling people to play one guy in this range, all things being considered, expected output, ownership, I go with Mitch Keller.
Yeah, I think Keller's a good answer. If I'm only playing one of these guys, I mean, Sonny Gray he's just behind Keller in terms of top two pitcher. I was only getting 12% ownership. So if you're playing a chalky lineup, otherwise, I do kind of like Sonny Gray at 9,400. But yeah, definitely Mitch Keller, somebody I'd consider.
Anything else in this range you want to talk about a pitcher? Anything that's popping up for you in any kind of meaningful way?
No, I think we've talked about the whole range. I'm getting to the most Ohtani and Urias, followed by Keller. Just 10% Sonny Gray, I think 10% Christian Javier. So I think those are, we talked about all of the interesting high-end guys, all of the high-end guys, actually.
Mm-hmm. So let's go to all the cheap options then, which is basically everybody else, right? Anybody who's priced below. So there's a big price gap now also.
Yeah.
Christian Javier is $8,600. The next most expensive pitcher is Brian Wu at $7,500. So if we're looking below 8,600, who is the pitcher you get the most exposure to in this range?
So the pitcher that I like the most would be Brian Wu against the Angels. Just a good team to pitch against in general. With Trout out, I like pitchers going against the Angels, and I think Brian Wu is still sort of an unknown to some extent. Like I think he has upside, so it would be Brian Wu, probably the pitcher that I independently like the most. That's cheap. Let me see if there's anybody that I'm actually getting to more. I didn't see any. Like all of my highest exposed pitchers are fairly expensive. I guess I have 15% Jameson Taillon. Fine, like not a great matchup with the Reds, but he's only 6,200. How's the weather? And I actually haven't looked at the weather in Wrigley, which is something that I always like to take a glance at.
It's not going to be a mass. So it's just blowing across the field today. It's not one where it's going to be like a massive impact on what we're expecting the scoring to be.
Yeah, I'm only getting 15% anyway. So, who do you like in the cheap end?
Yeah, so if we're going really cheap at pitcher, I mean, I'm mixing and matching guys here. So there's different people I'm taking stabs at. I've got some exposure to JP Sears. I hate the matchup, but still, I think at his ownership on this small slate, he's worth some exposure to. Jameson Taillon, Clark Schmidt. I don't have one guy, though, that I'd be like, oh, that is the guy that I want to go out and play. Like most of these options are not great. Like Brian Wu has been somebody that I've rostered a good amount in this entire season. But one thing that we've started to see about him is that he does not get left-handed hitters out really at all. He dominates righties, but he's really struggled against lefties. So what we started to see teams do is go with more left-handed heavy lineups against him. And if you look at the lineup that the Angels are throwing out there today, they've got Mike Moustakas, they've got Mickey Moniak, they got Rengifo, who's a switch hitter, they've got Matt Thaiss, who is a lefty, and then they've got Shohei Ohtani. So they're actually going more than half of their lineups are lefties against him, which is what we've seen teams doing heavily against Brian Wu as of late. And I do think that's something that's contributed to him having a few rocky starts in a row, just because teams have started to realize like, oh, here's his weakness, which we see with young players all the time, whether it be hitters or pitchers. And think about like Ellie De La Cruz, for instance. A lot of his early success was based on, batting average on balls and play luck, which was not sustainable. But also his strikeout rate has gone through the roof as of late. Why is that? Because pitchers have realized, oh, he swings at everything. You don't have to throw the ball anywhere near the strike zone to Ellie De La Cruz, and he's likely going to swing and miss and strike out. So what ends up happening is you get these young players, teams start to build up a scouting report on them. They go, this is how we're going to attack him. And then it's on the young player to adjust. And then, the adjustment game happens back and forth. And then the other teams adjust to the pitcher. But we're kind of in this state now with players like Ellie De La Cruz and like Brian Wu, where I think teams have realized how it is they could get to them. Obviously, getting Ellie De La Cruz out as a hitter, and then how you could hit Brian Wu as a pitcher. So I don't hate Brian Wu. I just think he's too highly owned at north of 20% ownership. So I prefer mixing and matching some of the other cheap guys. If I had to pick one, which is what I'm going to do because it is the practice that I set up here. And let's see, if we're just going one pitcher, but part of me just wants to say JP Sears when we're taking ownership into account, but I can't go ahead and do that. Not as my one guy. I'll go with Clark Schmidt if you could only play one. And when you look at Clark Schmidt this year, number one, we do project him relatively well. 13 fantasy points at a cheap price point. Tough matchup for him for sure against the Houston Astros, but he is a pitcher that we've seen spike a strikeout upside this year. Yeah. So I'm going to go with Clark Schmidt, but I'm overweight to the field on Schmidt. I'm overweight to the field on Tyon, and I'm overweight to the field on JP Sears. Sears is 1% owned. So on a 6-game slate, he's incredibly easy to get overweight to. But if you're just playing one lineup and want to know who I'm most confident in of these guys, I'm going to go with Clark Schmidt.
I'm sticking with, as far as the cheap end guys, I'm sticking with Brian Wu, even with the concerns with lefties. Just looking through this Angels lineup, I'm not all that scared by it. It's not that I'm confident that he's going to do well. I think 20% feels about right to me, I guess. It's just like, I think that there is a wide range of outcomes with Brian Wu. So I like the idea of playing the Angels against him, but I also like the idea of taking some shots on him. So I feel like the ownership is about right on Brian Wu, and he's probably I don't love anybody in the cheap range, so it'd probably be he'd be the one that I would default to.
Nothing more annoying than you get the lineups. You got the next iteration of them done, and then what happens? Nolan Gorman, foot scratched from the lineup today. So if anybody's playing any kind of Cardinal stacks, get Nolan Gorman out of there. He is not going to be playing today. And we did finally get the Mariners lineup out. So I was all excited to get my new lineups ready to go, upload it into the Sims tool. And then what happens? Everything goes to shit. We're going to have to redo it again once the Cardinals lineup, new one comes out and ownership gets rerun. But
speaking of late breaking foot news, I just want to ask for some opinions. If we have any doctors in chat, so I'm going over to my friend's house to set up our draft board tonight for I'm in an unlimited keeper league. We go over every year, like a group of us get together, we set up a draft board. And one of my friends just texted the group and said, my son, who I think is like 1 year old, has hand, foot, and mouth disease. We were at the doctor, just found out he's had hand, foot, and mouth disease for a little while, and he's asking whether we would be comfortable with my friend coming, who does not we don't know that he has it. I have no idea what to make of that. Should we tell him not to come because his son has hand, foot, and mouth disease? If any doctors in chat or parents, I guess, have opinions, let me know.
Yeah, so one thing I'm going to say is that hand, foot, and mouth disease is not real. It's made up, and this is them trying to get out of it.
It sounds made up, right?
Yeah.
I had never heard of it until probably 2 years ago, and every guy in this group of friends, they all have young kids, and all of their kids have gotten hand, foot, and mouth disease, and it's something that I lately have heard about a ton, and doesn't sound fun, but I don't really know much about it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, that your penis falls off if you get it.
Oh God, I don't want that.
Tread carefully.
I don't want that. I like my penis.
Yeah. If you use it, it's one of those things you don't use it, you lose it. But also, if you get hand, foot, and mouth disease, you could also potentially lose it. So just be wary. Be wary of that. By the way, I figured that you're probably pretty excited. Do you know what's happening tonight, Neil?
Yes, I do know what's happening, and I don't actually think I'm playing it tonight. But I know that the Hall of Fame game is taking place, and immediately after this show, there's going to be NFL Live Before Lock.
There is going to be NFL Live Before Lock, and a couple of things that we should note here. First of all, we have our NFL DFS preseason package live right now. We've got a great deal because if you sign up right now, there's a link below that you guys could sign up with it. You are going to get your first 5 days for only $1. 5 days, $1 of our DFS preseason package. So good way. If you just want projections for tonight's game, $1, and you get all of that in your back pocket. And you're going to have somebody like Matt Kajeski who's going to do all the research for you. We've got projections. We've got depth charts up on the site. I know if it wasn't for that, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to play just because I'm doing the MLB show. And then also after this, by the way, I'm going to be doing a giveaway in Chalkboard. Chalkboard, totally free to download if you guys want another chance also to get access to our NFL DFS preseason package. I'm going to be giving away some free subscriptions to it for the entire preseason in Chalkboard right after the show ends. So go check that out as well. Or if you guys are signing up for the first time, use that link below, 5 days, $1 for our DFS preseason package and get to sweat out some of the dumbest football games of the year. But you can have money on it. It's going to be a really good time. Matt Kajeski does an absolute bang-up job with the projections. It's going to help you make some money. So go check that out if you guys are playing NFL DFS preseason contest. Are you going to be playing some of the main slate preseason DFS contests?
Is it this weekend? Probably. I don't know. It's like, I love every form of football. I kind of hate the forms of football, like, or of DFS, where I have to make guesses about, like, is this guy going to play 1 quarter or 2 quarters? Like, that's where I kind of draw the line. I haven't historically played a ton. I told Matt on it. We did a stream a couple hours back. I told him the only way I'm going to play this stuff is if I am able to consume the content for it, because I'm not going to do it just based on projections. I want to know, like, what the actual context is. So if I'm able to listen to Gajeski on a live before lock or something, then I'll probably play. But otherwise, I'll skip it.
Oh boy, Joe Blanco in the chat saying you guys should fight to the death for who the real Chris Williams is.
There's another Chris Williams.
Are there multiple Chris Williamses in chat? Let's see. Is that well? So here's part of the issue too, though. I'm sure Chris is used to that. If you were to ask me most common names that exist in the U.S., Chris Williams has to be in the top 5 or 10.
I mean, yeah, it's got to be. I mean, there's like Chris Johnson, like Chris Smith. There are more common names than Williams, but like
that's an overall fairly common name though.
Yeah,
like Joe Thomas, former offensive lineman for the Browns. There's no way he's the only Joe Thomas.
How will we know which guy is our Apple guy if there's 2 Chris Williamses?
Well, and not only that, but he says the other one's also at the Apple store.
Oh, really?
What if that's what if they only hire people named Chris Williams at the Apple store?
That'd be a weird thing to learn. Like you introduce yourself to all the other Chris's and then eventually learn that they're Williamses. I don't know.
I mostly agree with chat though, Chris. I think you have to fight them. I mean, that really
you got to
does
fight
seem
to
like
the
the
death.
only way.
Yeah.
It does seem like the only way. Now let's go ahead and get back to anything else you want to add at pitchers as far as DraftKings goes.
I don't think so. Do you talk about Adrian Hauser at all? I mean, he's 5,200, 35% chance of being a top 2 point per dollar pitcher. So I do think Adrian Hauser is interesting. But yeah, I think we've covered pitchers fairly well.
So let's look at the pitchers over on FanDuel. And while a lot of it is the same, there are definitely going to be some differences when we talk about FanDuel pitching. What's going to stand out the most to me, though, is that you have Shohei Ohtani and Julio Urias. The two of them are combined to be in more than 50% of the field's lineups. That's generally where everybody is going. I do think Julio Urias at $8,800 looks a lot different on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings. Here's why. Because on FanDuel, where you have guys like, Mitch Keller, Sonny Gray, they're way more expensive than Julio Urias on FanDuel, whereas on DraftKings, they're all about the same price. Right. So Julio Urias is $8,800, which on FanDuel is $1,400 less expensive than Mitch Keller. It's $1,300 less expensive than Sonny Gray. And then we get the added security of stuff like the win bonus, the quality start. I think that the ownership is very much justified on Julio Urias over on FanDuel. Same with Shohei Ohtani. If you have the ability to spend all the way up, I say go to Ohtani. If you want to save a little bit of money, go to Julio Urias. If you had to go cheap on FanDuel, though, who would be the pitcher that you would roster below $8,800 below Urias?
Below 8,800. Ooh. I think I would still go to Brian Wu. I know despite all of your protestations about him not being able to get lefties out, I still think if I'm going below 8,800, that's probably where I would be going. I like the matchup with the A's. I can't see anybody else that I like better. So it would still be Brian Wu for me. How about you?
So on FanDuel, I'm going to say Brian Wu. My main issue with Brian Wu on DraftKings is not that, because I don't really play baseball in terms of what I expect. If I played baseball how I expected it to happen, I would never play any of the lineups I play. I wouldn't have stacked against Kevin Gausman on the early slate if I'm just playing how I think the slate is expected to be played. The main issue I have with Brian Wu on DraftKings is I just think he's too popular. He's projected for north of 20% ownership. On FanDuel, with all of the field generally rostering Shohei Ohtani or Julio Urias, you're getting Brian Wu at 8% owned on FanDuel. That's much less problematic for me. So if I am going cheap on FanDuel, I'm cool with Brian Wu at this salary and this ownership on FanDuel.
Okay, good. We're on the same page.
All right, let's go ahead and build out some lineups in the MLB lineup generator now, Jordan. We'll see what comes up on FanDuel and DraftKings. And then we'll go ahead and look at the questions you guys have, because I did see that there were some questions about stacks that were in the Discord channel. I figured I would just wait until we got to the stacks to address those. Let's look at the MLB lineup generator. We'll go with DraftKings. I want to go contrarian lineups today. I know Neil likes the buffet of lineups where he goes.
I played contrarian today, I think.
Okay. Yeah, 6-game slates. I prefer to just go contrarian.
Mostly because I was getting like 100% Cub stacks. Doing anything else?
All right. So if we go ahead and by the way, looking like we're getting into a little bit of a mix. I'm seeing a good amount of Pirates stack showed up. It looked like there, but maybe I just saw a couple on. Predominantly Cubs again.
Yeah.
Not as much as yesterday. Yesterday we're like 80% Cub stacks or something, I think, when we did it for DraftKings. Today, though, 60% Cubs, 33% Dodgers, 20% Twins. It's a little more spread out than we normally see across 20 lineups on a 6-game slate. Cubs still the chalk team to be getting to, but then Dodgers, Twins, Pirates. Yeah, is this another slate where it looks like you're getting to a lot of the Cubs, Neil?
Yeah, I am still getting to a lot of the Cubs, even after, intentionally cutting back. Let me see the exact stack. I have 60% Cub stacks overall, and that includes anything that, primary or secondary 3-man stacks would be included there. But I'm still at 60% the way I built. Even after, like I said, I cut back on Ohtani. I also went back and intentionally cut back on a few of my Cubs lineups to get to a little diversity. Still got to 60%, and think I'm okay with that as long as I don't have more than 50% of any of the players on the Cubs, and I don't. I have my max exposure is to Ian Happ, 50%. So still taking a pretty big stand on the Cubs, but I cut it back from, when I was getting to all the Cubs.
Oh my God. And Jordan Klein is saying, my parents were on the fence about naming me Chris Williams. And then we got another Chris Williams to just join the chat. So in fairness to Jordan's situation, though, and we'll check out the player exposures in a second, Jordan's parents just looked at him and go, that looks like a Chris Williams. So that's why they were really considering it. They're like, this isn't a Jordan Klein. This is a Chris Williams. But then they ultimately ended up going with Jordan Klein. My parents, so my mom wanted to name me Spencer. My dad wanted to name me Eddie because my dad thinks Eddie Ehrenberg is the coolest name ever. I've told this story on the channel before.
I like that. I know you should have gone with Eddie, I think. I'm with him.
So my dad wanted to name me Eddie. My mom didn't want to. My dad wanted to name my brother Eddie. My mom didn't want to. My dad wanted to name my next brother Eddie. My mom didn't want to. And then my dad wanted to name my sister Eddie as well, which my mom was also not in favor of. So none of us are named Eddie, much to the chagrin of my dad. But now my dad is on trying to convince us if we have grandkids for him that they should be named Eddie.
I like it. He should not give up the fight, in my opinion.
The fight never dies.
You name him Edward and let him choose, do I want to be an Eddie? And then you just, everybody call him Eddie, force it, kind of.
I'm thinking I'm going to name my kids Chris Williams. That's where I'm at here.
I like that too. Chris Williams Ehrenberg is it's a very strong name.
Yeah, Chris Williams. Well, I don't know that we're going to. I think it's just going to be. By the way, Christian Ehrenbergs is very. Those are names at war with each other. Like that's a very confusing.
Christian Ehrenbergs. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that name.
That's a confusing name for sure. But I'm down with it. Christian Williams. That's going to be my. I don't think I'm going to have kids, but if I do, Chris Williams will be where it's at. Player exposures over here. And by the way, if you guys haven't checked out the lineup generator tool, sign up using the link below. You're going to get access to all this data, projections. It's going to build lineups for you. You could upload them directly to DraftKings and FanDuel. Less than $5 when you sign up for the first time using that link below. And yeah, no surprise here. Tons of Cubs, a lot of Shohei Ohtani in about half of our lineups. Ian Happ, Cody Bellinger, Dansby Swanson, Chris Morrell, Nick Madrigal. And then if you go up to the top, we're getting to a lot of Freddie Freeman. So even though these still ended up being fairly popular lineups that we have in here, but maybe some secondary pitchers are different looking. Yeah, they are. While we do have the Julio Urias in there, look, Clark Schmidt, he's showing up in some of the lineups. Keep scrolling down, Jordan. I want to see who the other pitchers are. I thought Jordan left us for a second.
I thought he did too. I was like, take a hint, man. It's just a little slow though. We forget that Jordan's pretty slow.
That is true. He's very dumb. Keep going.
He hasn't found he's just sitting here. He hasn't found another pitcher. Adrian Hauser. Okay, 27% Adrian Hauser.
Yeah, Adrian Hauser. There's Mitch Keller. I'm also overweight to the field on Keller. We ended up overweight to him here. So yeah, secondary pitchers where we differentiate a little bit, where it looks like, we're getting to some of Urias, some of Shohei Ohtani, and then just these other really contrarian pitchers kind of mixed in. And that could be enough to make an entire lineup different looking.
For sure.
Anything else you notice here you want to bring up?
Got a little bit of Brian Wu there. 60%. It's interesting to me that we have 60% Freddie Freeman without having like a boatload of Dodgers stacks. I mean, we have 33% Mookie Betts as well. I guess 27% Will Smith, but like that is like a ton of Freddie Freeman one-offs, which is interesting.
It is although with that said, we had a good amount of Dodger stacks. There were
what is our Dodger stack exposure, Jordan? 33. Okay. But I mean, but still, it's like clearly we had a lot of Freeman one-off, just the disparity.
Yeah, I'm curious because I'm about to now rerun lineups now that we have Fermin in the lineup and there's no more Nolan Gorman. Interested to see how some of my lineups now end up looking a little bit different with the new Cardinals lineup, and then also all the other teams now that have their lineups confirmed, and I could actually run all of this through. Anything else you want to mention here from DraftKings? If not, we'll go ahead and move over to FanDuel.
No, I think we've talked about all the interesting bits.
All right. Same deal, Jordan. Let's build out some FanDuel lineups and make them contrarian, and let's see what it is that pops up here. And by the way, Malukar, your four names?
3 names.
Malukar's just saying, oh, never mind. He's giving out his daughters. I thought this was one name. Anyway, yeah. Malukar's daughters are Mallory, Lauren, Carly, none of them named Eddie. No Eddie Malukar.
Could have been Mallowed. Yeah. Could have been. Ed Lakar.
Mallowed Malukar?
Yeah. Missed opportunity.
I don't know if I love that name. Check the stack exposures here, Jordan. I want to see what's coming up on FanDuel for our most rostered stacks. A ton of Cubs, Dodgers, Brewers. This is almost the exact, pretty close to being the exact same stacks that we got over on DraftKings. Is this what you also got this morning when you were building lineups in the lineup generator? Yeah,
very similar. I was getting to a ton of the Cubs and a ton of Ohtani.
All right. Oh, oh my God. I'm trying to figure out where I put the file that I just did. And I found out that because I'm only half paying attention to what I'm doing, updating my lineups, I saved it labeled NBA on the file. So that's why I couldn't find it. Can't call your MLB file NBA. All right. Save that correctly. Let's go to the player exposures, Jordan, and see what we're getting to the most of on FanDuel. Oh, 70% Shohei Ohtani on a single pitcher site. That's a whole bunch of Shohei Ohtani, but he is priced a little bit less expensive on FanDuel. And also on DraftKings, where, I can make more of a case on DraftKings for getting to some lineups that, have Mitch Keller as opposed to a Shohei Ohtani. It's hard on FanDuel, though, where they're basically the same price. Shohei was 10-4, and then Mitch Keller only a few $100s less expensive. So I kind of just like playing the chalk Shohei Ohtani on FanDuel. Do you have any issue with that, Neil?
Not at all. I think if I were playing on FanDuel, I would have a similar to this kind of exposure on Ohtani.
And then let's see, in terms of the hitters we're getting the most of. So in those Cub stacks, no hitters are more than 40% of these lineups, but Mike Tauchman, Yan Gomes, Cody Bellinger, Nico Horner, also pretty similar to our DraftKings exposures. And then we've got William Contreras popping up there. Keep scrolling down, Jordan. I want to see which pitchers we got to for FanDuel purposes.
Julio Urias 15%, Clark Schmidt 15%. I do like, as you said, like, although we are getting to a lot of the Cubs, are like the ownership on individual bats within the Cubs it's pretty spread out, which I like.
Yeah, there's a pretty good mix of Cubs hitters. And then even down there, like, Heimer Candelario, Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ. Yeah, we do have a pretty good mix of the hitters we're getting to in our Cubs stacks over on FanDuel. And then what else? There's the Clark Schmidt, the Julio Urias. So pretty heavily underweight to Julio Urias actually on FanDuel in these lineups. The Dodgers hitters we got the most of were Mookie Betts, Chris Taylor, Ahmed Rosario, and Freddie Freeman, if I read all those off correctly. Oh, and Kike Hernandez as well. Anything else of note here that's standing out to you, Neil?
Not really. Nothing really standing out. Pretty similar to DraftKings.
All right.
I guess, is that William Contreras that we're getting 40% of? That's sort of interesting. Like, just given that you don't need a catcher on FanDuel, a lot of times catchers will come in at low ownership. I wonder if that's the case for Contreras.
Let's see. I don't think it is entirely. It's more so we got to a lot of Brewer stacks on FanDuel.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think they were like 30%. Looks like we got another super chat here. This one, I don't even know. So I don't even know who to address this because it's from Chris Williams, but which Chris Williams?
Oh, well, one of them has the stochastic avatar The other one is new.
This is the benefit of being a member in YouTube chat.
This is the benefit.
This is how you identify. This is how you identified you're the real deal Holyfield. And you're not the fake Chris Williams. We know the real Chris Williams from the fake Chris Williams because only one of them is a YouTube member. And Chris Williams left us a super chat. He says, "Do you mind ranking the 4 pitchers on the night slate?" And FYI, I am one of the corporate offices, not an Apple store, so easier to be here daily. Okay, so he's corporate Chris. Corporate Chris. Okay, rank the 4 pitchers on the night slate. Yes, sir. We could definitely go ahead and do that. So for the night slate over on DraftKings, let's see. What do we have? Pulling this up. DK,
Ohtani, Urias, Wu, and JP Sears.
Really interesting, right? Because
yeah,
we've actually got we've got the best pitching options from the main slate here. It's pretty easily Ohtani 1, Urias 2.
Yeah, to me, it's in exactly the order that I just read them. Ohtani, Urias, Wu, Sears.
I'm going to say Sears over Wu just for ownership purposes on a 2-game slate. Like if you're going to differentiate, one of the easiest ways to do is you just play JP Sears at 19% ownership, but I'm not really dying to play 19% on JP Sears. To be honest, I would just go ahead and if you're playing like one lineup, just roll out Ohtani and Urias.
We have so on the 2-game slate, we actually have 4% ownership going to JP Sears, which is a little bit more interesting, but 12% going to Wu. Yeah, I agree. If you're just playing one lineup, I would probably also go to Ohtani and Urias. But like if you had exactly 8,200, so say you make a lineup that you love, it's a stacked lineup. I guess it's a 2-game slate. Maybe you don't even want to full stack, but you love the bats in your lineup. You already have Ohtani in there. You have 8,200 exactly left over. Which pitcher do you think you would go to, Greg?
JP Sears.
He does project. No, Brian Wu projects better. I would probably go to Wu unless it's an extremely chalky lineup.
But just in general, if you're playing on a 2-game MLB slate, you're playing like that because he's still going to be in 50% of lineups. If you're using all of the salary there, it's almost certainly a duped lineup.
I just realized some of the stats I was looking at were from FanDuel. I was in my FanDuel fantasy manager, not DraftKings, so that's why we had different numbers.
Yeah, I was also thinking while you're saying that Brian Wu was 7,500.
Yeah, so that was
either way. I'd go with JP Sears.
Okay. Yeah. So that didn't make any sense what I was saying, but I prefer Wu. You prefer Sears. I think that's reasonable.
So what I was thinking is, I wonder why he said 8,500. It's really what I was thinking there. I was like, because it honestly, whether it was 85, I guess I should have answered differently then, because 8,500, you'd still be leaving a lot of salary on the table. So right. Will say if you have 8,500 left, then I'd say Brian Wu, just because you're leaving $1,000 in salary on the table. Right. But if you're using all the salary, JP Sears.
Joe Blanco says, "Do you mind ranking the Chris Williamses for me in terms of volatility in a GPP?"
Yep. I think Williams that 1, Chris Williams 2, Chris Williams 3, Chris Williams 4. Final answer.
That is a good answer. Yeah, for sure. I will say I feel like Chris Williams, the Apple guy, is very consistent. He's very steady. There's no boom bust to his game. He's always here. He's always doing well. This new Chris, I don't know him as much. He's kind of like a rookie coming in. Like, we don't know what to expect from new Chris. So he's definitely the more volatile of the two.
Let's go ahead and start talking about stacks now, Neil. And if we go ahead and look into the Discord chat right away, we've got questions coming in here. The first one is from Einsteinium, who wants to know, do we like the Brewers in single entry? Neil, do you like the Brewers in single entry? The Cubs are going to be massively, massively popular in single entry today.
I think the Brewers are definitely viable in single entry. Like, I don't know if they would be the first team that I would go to, but like, I think that they are a team to consider. They're going a little bit under-owned, 6.5%, 7.3% chance of being the top stack. So from that perspective, so I guess the answer is, yeah, I think they're viable. If you like a Brewers stack, I think that's fine. They would not probably be the first team that I would go to. How about you, Greg?
So when I build out my next set of lineups, I am going to play whatever is my highest projected ROI lineup that is not a Cub stack, because I think it's going to be really difficult to differentiate your lineups with a Cub stack in single entry. So is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think we're going to see individual Cub
hitters.
That call. Yeah, I think we're going to see individual Cubs hitters get just really slammed up. Like, maybe as well, the Dodgers end up being pretty popular. Nobody's going to play the Brewers in single entry. It's funny. You look at them in their Laudersfield tournament where it's if you see a team on a 6-game slate that's 7% owned in a large field tournament, in single entry, I mean, you're going to get like 2-3% ownership on the Brewers. I think they're a very strong option. I will say, I think they're a very strong option. I don't ultimately know if that's what I'm going to choose. I'll know that for sure in the next couple minutes here. But I think they're a good choice. They're a team that I'm about double the field on. I have 14% Brewers stacks in my last run.
That's a good amount of Brewers. Yeah. So maybe, I guess the answer, I mean, I think we agreed that they are a viable option for single entry, and neither of us knows if they necessarily would be the one that we would go to. I think that if I were hand building, I would probably, and this might sound contradictory to what I've been saying, but I would probably go the Angels as my just as looking through the stacks, looking through the top stacks. So the Angels stand out to me as the stack that I would have probably the most interest in. That's probably where I would go for single entry, but Brewers definitely viable.
Shout out to Chris Williams, who just gifted out more of the YouTube memberships. And by the way, it looks like Israel Williams got one in there. So more Williams in there. Nice. And then he said, thanks, cuz. Are they actually cousins? They do both have Williams. Williams is a fairly uncommon last name. They could be related. But anyway, shout out to Chris Williams. Thank you for leaving, or I should say gifting out more YouTube memberships. And we got a really interesting super chat here from Olrat14. Olrat is saying he's fading Ohtani and Urias. And in the scenario where he's fading Ohtani and Urias, which stack and which pitchers would you be going to if you weren't playing Ohtani and Urias? Neil, what would you do in this scenario?
So I think if you're not playing Ohtani and Urias, you can probably play the Cubs. Like you're not playing a ton of ownership there. So I would maybe consider, like in that case, just go with the chalk, the team that has the highest top stack odds, because you're already getting contrarian enough with pitcher. And then which pitchers I would go to if I'm fading Ohtani and Urias. I mean, Keller, I think is a good option. We talked about him pretty a lot earlier. Keller, and then whoever. I mean, if you can fit Sonny Gray, I would go to Sonny Gray. He's coming in at 12% ownership. Otherwise, I like Brian Wu if you only have 7,500 left over. Kind of depends on who you could fit there. How would you answer the question, Greg?
I would go Keller, Tyone, and a Cub stack.
Nice.
You're getting a little bit of added correlation, right? Which is fun. I did this last night. I had a bunch of Cub stacks. So we had all that Drew Smiley exposure. And if you remember, and by the way, Smiley wasn't terrible yesterday in terms of he scored what was like 11 fantasy points at like no ownership and a cheap price, and pitching was kind of sketchy yesterday. And he was so close too. He came out with like 1 out in the 5th inning. He pitched, I think it was 4. It was either 4 2/3 or 4 1/3 innings. But either way, I do like the idea that if you're stacking the Cubs and on these cheap pitchers, if Tyone goes out and pitches decently and the Cubs offense puts up a big score, pretty good chance that he gets the win bonus, right? And then at his price point, probably enough for him to be serviceable for tournament purposes. So that's what I'm going to say to you there, full rat. Cub stack, and then Mitch Keller and Jameson Tyone.
I like
only 6,200 for Tyone on DK today. And then the other thing you could do too, I'm pretty sure with that build, you could play kind of whoever else you want. All the salary to spend. So you could go like a Dodger stack as a secondary stack as well.
Right. That sounds like a nice lineup, actually. I just realized we don't have JD Martinez in. I got to redo some lineups. Shoot.
How long ago did you build your lineups?
Before the show. I want to see what I would have. So I'm just going to clear them out. I mean, my process using the lineup generator takes me 3 minutes, so I'll be fine.
Oh, all right. Look at you, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Yeah, I'm fancy.
Let's go ahead and look at the Discord, and no other questions coming in, but we do have a lot of ownership going to the Cubs. They've absolutely smashed the last couple of the slates. I'm also getting to the Cubs, my most roster team, but not nearly as much as I had yesterday. I'm overweight, but only slightly overweight to the Cubs. What are you going to be doing with the most popular stack on the slate? They're projected for nearly 20% ownership, and that's about what I have of the Cubs as well right now.
Yeah, so I just ran a new set of 20 lineups, and in my first, even doing contrarian lineups, I have 80% Cubs stacks, and that includes, again, secondary stacks. I'm going to cut back on that a little bit, but I'm with you. I'm going to be overweight to the Cubs once again, like significantly.
Oh, no, so you are not on the same page as me then.
Oh, you're not significant. Oh, sorry. I guess I was not listening. I thought you were saying you were overweight again.
I'm overweight, but not in the same way I was the last. So I had 60% Cubs stacks yesterday. I'm just a little bit over 20% right now.
You don't want to dance with the girl you came to the dance with? Like, they've been crushing it. That's like pretty close to how you use that metaphor, right?
Yeah. Well, not exactly, because it's not like the Cubs have been carrying me all year. They were just good yesterday.
That's true. That's a good point. Past 2 days.
Yeah, that's true. So they helped me make some money yesterday, but I also think, and this is kind of more like an intuition type angle, I think they're going to end up being even more popular than what they're projected.
Yeah, I think there is a good chance of that. So I think that's a wise decision.
Like you very rarely see a team absolutely destroy a slate in the way they destroyed the slate in 2 consecutive days.
Right.
Here's one thing if Luke Maile pitches again in tonight's game, I will take the rest of the MLB season off. If the same backup catcher pitches in 3 consecutive games, I will be stunned by it. My boldest prediction on that is that Luke Maile does not pitch.
That is a bold. I mean, we've seen 2 games in a row. How could you make that prediction after we've seen it 2 games in a row, Greg?
So the other thing too is it doesn't his arm get tired or something like that?
Pitchers happens to pitchers, but apparently position players is not an issue.
Yeah, and by the way, I think easily the Cubs are the team that we should. If you just ask me, you can only stack one team. Ownership is not a consideration. The answer is the Cubs. I just wonder if this team is going to end up coming in like 25% owned, and it's the reason also why I'm getting off of them in single entry. I just think they're going to be uber popular in single entry.
Yeah, no, it's a real concern.
All right, let's go ahead, favorite these lineups, see what I ended up getting.
I forgot. I was thinking that I have 2 minutes, and I actually have 12 minutes.
Yeah, you got time.
Plenty of time.
We have got time. All right. As far as other stacks, all right. So you're getting to a lot of Cubs. What team outside of the Cubs are you getting the most exposure to?
So I just redid my lineup, so it's probably changed a little bit, but I got down. I redid some. I got to 60% of the Cubs. Then I got to 35% of my Twins. I love that. Happy to get to the Twins today. I also have 30% of the Dodgers, and then a big drop off to my next stacks. I currently don't have any Angel stacks. If I were hand building, or if I were building a different way, I would probably force in some Angel stacks because I'm really interested in them in that matchup with Brian Wu. I think that it could go a lot of different ways, and one of those ways is the Angels just knock them around early and often. But currently I don't have any Angels. My highest exposed Cubs, Twins, Dodgers by far are my 3 highest exposed stacks currently. What are you getting to?
Yeah, so I'm looking through my line. By the way, also, it's not like, I mean, it's 22% Cub stacks is what I have right now.
Right. Which
in my
is a lot. Like in general, 22% to one team feels like a lot.
So the team that I landed on the second most of is your Minnesota Twins. They're expected to be popular, but I'm overweight to the field on them. I've got the Dodgers third at 10%, but that does have me a little bit underweight. The team that I am the most overweight to here as a super contrarian team is actually the Seattle Mariners against Shohei Ohtani. Just as a leverage spot here, the Mariners offense does have a little bit of firepower to it. And then also Shohei Ohtani, as much as a great year he's having, he has been better as a hitter than as a pitcher. Like if somebody's playing one lineup, I'm not going to advocate for you going out and stacking the Seattle Mariners. But I do think this is a pretty interesting looking team for single entry where Ohtani's going to be like 80% owned. And yeah, you also are getting just a ton of leverage on them.
No, yeah, it's an interesting call. I'm here. So in the top stacks tool, where do we have? They're actually not the bottom. They have a 5% chance of being the top stack. That's kind of interesting. Coming in at 4% ownership, 5% chance of being the top stack, and 7% chance of being the top value stack. So they do look good in the top stacks tool. And frankly, that's a higher top stack odds than I would have guessed.
It's a 6-game slate.
Yeah, true.
There's a lot of randomness in baseball. It's only a 6-game slate. But I'm just, so earlier in the day, my single entry stack, I'm talking myself more and more into it. My single entry stack on the early slate, I stacked against Kevin Gausman, who's the best pitcher of the day. Now it looks like I'm going to be stacking against Shohei Ohtani on the night slate in single entry. A little bit different of a scenario because the slate is slightly bigger, 6 games instead of 4. But I don't know. Do you want to try to talk me out of stacking against Shohei Ohtani on the night slate? Like I really think in single entry, Ohtani is going to be 80% owned.
No, I don't want to talk you out of it. I think that it's a very interesting idea. I think that it's a good idea. It's not going to hit all of that often, but as we said, I mean, 5% chance. There's a 1 in 20 chance that you're just going to be absolutely lapping the field, and they're probably going to be even lower owned than the 4% ownership we have them projected for. I would guess the Mariners are even lower than that in single entry. So yeah, no, I'm not going to talk you out of it.
All right, start uploading these lineups. I'm sure I haven't pulled up the YouTube chat yet as I'm entering my lineups. I'm sure I'm getting clowned for this, though. I'm sure people think I'm a moron. We'll see. What are they saying about me? The American Hillbilly saying that he got a 60% Ohtani. John Browning is saying that he must be way behind because he's talking about hand, foot, and mouth disease. And then Spencer Smith wants to know what I'm having for dinner. So I don't know. Maybe I'm overstating that people think that I am doing something dumb, because it seems like nobody cares who it is that I'm playing.
It's like, all right, Greg, you're just going to lose whatever money you put in. That's fine.
Yeah, they're just thinking rake free tonight. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Any other questions that we have in Discord? Nope, nothing right now. If you guys have any final questions, do hit us up with those. We'll be doing some home run picks for the next couple of minutes, and then we'll round up any of the rest of the stacks we think are of interest. But don't forget, guys, NFL preseason starts tonight. There's going to be an NFL preseason live before lock right after us. That is going to be Wolfie. It's going to be Matt Kajeski on that show. And if you guys want to sign up for our preseason DFS package, there's a link below for that. You're going to get it for $1 for 5 days. So access to all of the data and tools that Matt Kajeski has put together. You're going to get that for $1 for a Hall of Fame game tonight. And start off your NFL season with a preseason dub. How about that? Win some money playing NFL preseason. And then also don't forget, Chalkboard in a few minutes after we finish the show. I'm going to head into Chalkboard, which is a totally free to download app, and I'm going to give away some preseason packages for the entire preseason, totally for free in there as well. Neil, what else is standing out to you about your stacks? Anything else here that is of importance to your build?
I mean, I'll say that I would also have played some Houston if I, spent a little bit more time on my stack. I guess I have a Houston stack somewhere in my lineups. Somebody was asking which Twins bats we like the most. I like the top of the order, basically. I mean, they're going up against Matthew Liberatore. They're playing a bunch of righties at the top of the order. I think that would be where I would start. Clearly, Carlos Correa, Jorge Polanco, Kyle Farmer, Donovan Solano is only 2,700. Like, it's a very cheap stack in general, but also, like, I guess really the answer is there's no part of the lineup that I'm really opposed to. Like, in general, you're hoping that the pitcher gets hit around, and in that case, maybe they bring in a righty, and then suddenly Matt Wallner is looking great in the 9-hole. So there's no part of the Twin stack that I'm really opposed to, but in general, like, my favorite parts, probably like 1 through 5.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is if you are playing the Twins today, like which I said, this is my second most stacked team behind the Chicago Cubs. They're very cheap. It is very easy to go Cub stacks with Ohtani and Urias. If you wanted to go about, it's going to be a popular build, but I understand why people are getting there. I don't really have any kind of issues with that at all. As far as the stacks who are underweight to, are there any teams that are expected to be popular that you are not getting as much of as the field is?
I don't think I have a ton of Cincy. Let me check though.
Yeah, I am well under.
I don't have any
on the Reds.
I have 0 red stacks. I did draft them in 1 on Underdog, so I have one some exposure there, but 0 on DraftKings.
Yes, we've got the Reds projected for north of 10% ownership. 4 teams today projected for double-digit ownership: the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Twins, and the Reds. Of those teams, the only one I do not have double-digit exposure to is the Reds. I only have the Reds in 3% of my lineups. I felt for a very long time that this is an overrated team. And by the way, I shouldn't say feel. This isn't even based just on feel. And it's not to say this team doesn't have a lot of young talent, but people get so excited about young talent in sports. Yeah. And somebody like Ellie De La Cruz, who, by the way, is having a really good fantasy year. He's really exciting. He's like a 94 WRC plus for the year. It's sub 100. So if you take the entire year in total, he's like a slightly below league average hitter. And people go crazy for Ellie De La Cruz and this team. That's one of the other reasons, too, that I like Jameson Taillon as a leverage pitcher, because if I'm already going to be well underweight to the field on the Reds, it makes sense that I should be overweight to the field on Taillon as well.
Yeah, I like that call. What was I going to say? I was just going to comment on chat. Lee Schwartz says Twins are due to score up to 4 runs tonight, which is a painful comment, but true.
It would be so. I mean, and they're still just being gifted the AL Central.
Are they really? Like, how far ahead are they at this point?
They're not that far ahead, but the Guardians and the White Sox sold a lot of their players at the deadline.
Oh, good point. Yeah, I guess. Thinking, I didn't think they were that far ahead last I checked.
I mean, it would be if they don't win the division when they're actually trying to win the division and the other teams around them are trying to tank, it would be fairly miserable.
No, that's not how the Twins, but at least they don't have the Yankees to play against in the playoffs. The Twins thing is always like they crush it during the regular season, which they're not crushing, but they are leading the AL Central. They get to the first round of the playoffs and the Yankees sweep them, and they don't even compete in any of the games. That's what the Twins do. This year, they don't have the Yankees to compete with, so they'll probably just blow it in the last week of the season.
So they are up 2 games on the Guardians. The Twins have played more road games than home games at this point. And then you also have to consider that the Guardians traded away Savali at the trade deadline. They traded away Ahmed Rosario at the trade deadline. So yeah, I feel pretty good about the Twins winning that division. I think last I looked at FanGraphs, they had them with 70% probability to win the division.
We do need to make our dong pick since we both got them right yesterday, and I'm on a 2-game streak.
All right, so go ahead and do your. By the way, people in chat, don't forget Undercut Neil. Undercut
Neil.
Go ahead and go.
They didn't do it in time. My home run pick is Max Muncy.
All right.
Nobody said it. Nobody can undercut me.
All right. So Neil's got Max Muncy as his home run pick. It's very disappointing. I'm going to go with Aaron Judge. Who
I sort of feel like I should have run it back with Mookie Betts since he's done it for me the past 2 nights. But no, I'm just going back to another Dodgers bat. Aaron Judge. Okay.
Aaron Judge is my most rostered individual hitter on tonight's slate. Also, if you guys checked that odd shopper this morning, he was our number 1 home run bet in odd shopper as well. Plus 200 to homer. We had him a 40% chance to homer at plus 200 odds. So that was our number 1 bet of the day over there. So all that being considered, Aaron Judge, my most rostered hitter. I did bet him at plus 200 to homer. I'm going to stick with you. Aaron Judge, that is my dong pick of the day. Is it chalky? Yes. But guess what? I do not give a shit. Aaron Judge is going to homer today. That's my pick. You can't do anything about it. I'm the one hosting the show. That's how it's going to happen. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget NFL preseason live before lock right after this. And come check out Chalkboard as well. It is 100% free to download. Doing some giveaways in there. I gave away Bet Pro subscriptions on Monday. And right after this, in a couple of minutes, I'm going to be giving away NFL preseason DFS subscriptions. So go get in there for free, 100% free, and check it out. Good luck tonight, guys. See you back here tomorrow.